Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Hangout. I'm Mr. Bennett, and certainly good to be with you guys this evening on the show. As we ask as you come into the show, if you could just hit the like button for us and just let us know that you're appreciating the content. It really helps the algorithm. But I'm going to play the role of host tonight because, again, the topic that we're going to be revisiting today is the topic of martial arts. And obviously, I am a respecter of martial arts, but I cannot honestly say that I've been a practitioner of martial arts, but certainly we're going to be talking hopefully to a couple of gentlemen who have certainly had a long history in the martial arts, including all fighting forms. And so certainly I would look forward to having a conversation with these gentlemen to continue the conversation that I think we started out with a few weeks ago on another show. So we look to can carry out that conversation. But with that, again, I believe grooming is in the back. I'm not sure if Mandrell is here, but we certainly look to have an open conversation and dialogue with them on the different aspects of martial arts, both historically and as far as for today. And so again, grooming, if you're back there, you certainly coming up now, or Mandrell's in the back. I'm not sure who's joined the stream yet, but hopefully, again, I see grooming's here. Hopefully, Mandrell he'll be joining this conversation shortly as well, and we can certainly take it from there because I know certainly both of them have extensive martial arts experience. But with that, certainly welcoming grooming and reviews to the show, aka the ghost of Sparta, aka Peter, aka Paniotis. What's going on,
I'm not
man?
gonna lie
Yeah,
to you.
so
It feels weird getting introduced to my own show.
well, you asked for the weird, so
Yeah,
I'm
I
giving
can't
it to
figure
you.
out who you're talking to. I'm a little, off the edge already. So I gotta take credit for that part. But
Hmm.
guys, if you're hearing us fine, hit the one button for us. Or yo, or something. Make sure it sounds great. Make sure you hit a like, share, and subscribe. I gotta put my little in stuff. And also, as always, I got to give his intro before we move on.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna get one of these days. I'm gonna sit down and literally when I have time, make you a whole intro thing. Like when you come in, it pops out, and you're gonna like doing something like I don't know. I gotta figure that out. I'm trying to actually. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was trying to download the clip off your Facebook that I know you're dancing and put that music in the
Mm,
background. I think
yeah.
it'd be pretty cool.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Sounds good.
So
How's your weekend? Yeah. How's your weekend
go
been
ahead.
so far?
Not bad. It worked like always.
I
So
hear you.
heading to church tomorrow and then work after that. So not too bad. Looking forward for my day off on Wednesday. So it's gonna
Nice.
be a hectic up next day. Major is not with us yet. I did text talk to him through today. He's gonna be on. I'm not sure what time's coming on. So let's start up a little bit. So fighting styles, Paul. What's your opinion on
Okay.
that?
I'm sorry. What's the question?
I was gonna ask you when you hear fighting style, what's the first thing comes to your head before we move too far ahead?
Um. Well, I guess it's a way of applying the human body to a particular task. Um. So if you're talking about using the attributes of the person, whether the person is tall, short, fat, skinny, male, female, what have you, it's a
Mm-hmm.
way of applying a technique um, in a way that, especially if you talk about fighting. Now, again, I tend to separate martial arts from fighting. I don't think they're the same thing. Um, I think a lot of martial arts, especially those that are based on forms like wushu and whatnot, the at least in modern times, I think they focus less on the fighting and more on the art dealing with the bodily expression. It's a physical form. It's almost like in a lot of ways it's like a dance. It's a choreographed routine. But if you're talking about fighting, it's about using specific uh, uh, um, moves, specific types of strikes, strikes in specific areas that are meant to subdue or an opponent or to end a fight, or if in modern sports parlance to score points. So again, you're going to use techniques that you hope that your opponent is not used to seeing, is not prepared for, and if you use the technique properly, again, it'll give you one of those results. Either again, forcing the person to submit or withdraw, or again, subduing your opponent or scoring points depending on the venue that you're in. So when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to style, I look at martial arts in those terms, or certainly fighting styles. I look at them in those terms. The purpose is to fight. What the purpose is to defeat your opponent by one of those means.
Okay, so I want to clarify a couple things. Like you mentioned, when it comes to kata, kata is actually a fighting style. Believe it or not, you're just fighting yourself. You're practicing a fighting technique. The Karate Kid, I believe, was three. Actually, showed it to the T. Towards the movie, he's showing the moves, what he's doing, squaring up, and in the tournament, like the guy looked at him like, "What the hell are you doing, kid?" And he
Mhm.
finished him off with a kata. Is it a little far fetched?
Um, I would disagree a little bit with that because I thought that was a letdown. First of all, I think three was the worst in the series, quite honestly. But then I thought the way he finished, I thought the kata was a distraction, but he basically beat him with a simple a flip move and a strike to the ribs. So he used a very practical form that was outside his katas for the win, but the kata served as a distraction because nobody was looking for it. But I saw nothing in the kata forms that he was practicing that was actually utilized in the final point. He
For
only scored 1 point. He only scored 1 point on the guy, and that was the one that finished it off because the guy kept getting himself disqualified.
for a movie demonstration, yes, it was completely far off. But for realistic purposes, for example, we have one goes it goes up to up block, reverse yank. The yank would put him off the balance is a pull technique. As you pull him down, you go for a snap kick for the arm under the armpit that can pop your elbow, excuse me, your shoulder out. That's one of the most basic ones.
Hmm.
So, or another one is um, down block into a reverse punch. Very basic again, but that's in. You'll always learn your fundamentals in a
Hmm.
kata because everybody tells you katas are a fighting style to teach you to fight. You're fight a shadow fighting in a way. Does
Hmm.
that make sense? What I'm saying?
It does in the way it's been traditionally done, but like I said, I think just over the years, I've just become more. Um, I've just become more of the idea that it doesn't necessarily help you in a fight. Like, how many times have we seen these mixed competitions? It's like the Wing Chun guy taking on the boxer, or the Wing Chun guy taking on the martial artist.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times they don't even get a chance to even employ those techniques because if the other opponent overwhelms them with force or something, or if a lot of those moves aren't effective, then they go into more instinctual ways of fighting. I mean, Mike Tyson said it best: everyone has a plan until they're hit. And so, a lot of these guys, they're not necessarily prepared for combat. Again, they can do their katas, they can know their forms, but when it comes to fighting an actual real opponent, not even in a sports context, because again, there's rules there. But if you want to talk about survival tactics, a lot of times those things, I've seen plenty of martial arts guys and gis get taken out by boxers or someone someone else who again doesn't have those things, or they spent more practical time sparring or have actually had more combat experience than the one who fights. I think fighting is
Totally
as
agree.
much a yeah.
Totally agree. So where I'm going to again, can I have a little pushback?
Hmm.
Again, it starts your fundamentals like how to stand correctly, how to punch correctly, how
Hmm.
to block correctly, how to throw correctly. That's why katas are very, very important. I
Hmm.
would never invent a student to see the kata. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking to know the fundamentals. You can be off. If a reverse punch is supposed to be here, excuse me, here, and it's over here, at least you're striking with the right knuckles.
Hmm.
That's all I care. That's the fundamentals. Now,
Hmm.
if you're doing one of these things, like okay, your punch is down here, not up here. You get where I'm going with this.
Hmm.
So it's just one of those things. Like the fundamentals are so important. It's not even funny. It's always been great. But now when it comes to sparring, it's even more important than katas. Here's my problem with katas right now. They've been watered down so much lately.
Hmm.
Like I've been to so many tournaments, and now they're for more show than anything else.
Hmm.
I see them, grabbing a bow staff, flipping it in the air, and catching it. I'm like, yeah, in a real fight, if you throw your weapon in the air,
Yeah, you may not be
you're
there
gonna
to
get
retrieve it.
stabbed.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy has a sword, whoosh, and I'm like, oh, bye bye. So those are like what nunchucks people don't think is a real weapon, and it is. But nunchuck is one of the most popular show off weapon, and it's
Yes.
a beautiful weapon. It's a beautiful one. Ninja Turtles. Mike Adams used to show off all the time. Going all this moves.
Hmm.
Yeah, very show off. The
Hmm.
good best example I can give you with a good kata movie, Sidekicks. Do you remember that movie?
I remember the title and the actor that was in it, but I don't remember the movie that well. But you mentioned nunchucks. And I remember even Bruce Lee. I think it was Dan Inosanto who introduced Bruce Lee to nunchucks.
That's correct.
But Bruce Lee was never a fan of nunchucks, but he did say they look cool in a movie. So he wasn't a fan.
He
And the
was never
thing
a
about
weapons
it
guy.
is, what's that?
He was never a weapons guy.
Right. But if you watch, though, even in the films, he used a lot of practical applications for the nunchucks. If you remember Return of the Dragon, when he's fighting the guys in the back alley at a restaurant, he does this move where I think a guy comes with a stick or a pole, and he's able to wrap the nunchucks around the pole to lock it, and then he kicks the
That's
guy
correct.
off from the nunchuck. So I think there were times when he did use it in a martial way that wasn't just show offy. But as far as him doing the spins and the moves with it, certainly, he was of the opinion that it wasn't necessarily, a great weapon in a combat situation, but he certainly tried to, represent them as best as as best as he could.
The weapon I always tell all my students is the best weapon you can have is yourself.
Hmm.
The second best weapon I also agree with, and because it's more practical, honest stick
Hmm.
fighting.
The sticks,
Because
yeah.
you can find a stick anywhere to
You
defend
can
yourself.
exactly
Or a
broomstick, a
pole.
baseball bat, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter.
Third best weapon you can use is a bow staff. You can make a broom in a bow staff. You can use a pipe in a bow staff. You can use
Hmm.
anything to turn into a bow staff.
Right.
And it looks fucking cool too on top of that.
Hmm.
So you get both worlds. But all this flipping around. There's is one technique called a finger eight in a nunchuck. It's literally what you call a finger eight. That is literally the block technique.
Hmm.
And that is very fundamental again to defend yourself
Hmm.
from any shape, way, or form. Oh, very fast. Imagine just text me. He is running a little late. He will be with us in a little bit. So
Okay.
try to kill the time.
Right.
And another heads up, I'm in the middle of a thunderstorm. I'm not about you, Paul. So hopefully we don't lose
Now
power.
we had them earlier today, so I think I'm okay for now.
Yeah.
But yeah, early in the afternoon we had some here. Finally, because
So
actually we needed some rain, so I was happy about it.
well, it depends on the weapon. There are a lot of weapons that a sword, for example, beautiful weapon, but you see carrying your sword with you like, what's that?
Right.
No, it's not gonna happen because the weapons are getting very obsolete in a lot of karate dojos. I'm
Right.
gonna refer to that, not karate martial art dojos, because
Right.
where's the last time you're gonna see yourself carrying a sword, a bow staff? I know that's a kind of exception. You can use a broom, like I said, but a nunchuck, for example, a side, or tonfas, for example. That's the old police thing they use. That's
Right.
when are you gonna see you carrying that?
Okay.
So
Well, that being said, then have martial arts from your point of view adapted to more practical things like a switchblade, like a or folding jackknife, something that you can carry
yes
in
and
your
no,
pocket?
yes and no. So yes, they have adapted, but defense against those weapons, not to use them yourself. If that makes
Okay,
sense.
and right, but then I would ask, well, why not? If those practical forms, again, we're not going back to the 1800s or 17 or 1600s when you used katagana swords and long sticks and bow staffs. Those aren't things three section staffs. Those are things that you're not necessarily carrying with you. So it seems like a lot of that stuff is more so for cultural preservation, but not necessarily adapting to today's things that are used in fighting. Even something as simple as like a chain, like a long chain that you can sort of fold up and put in your pocket, you can whip it out and you can swing it around and it becomes like a whip to certain degrees. I mean, there's a lot of things you can look at practically. Again, I think the sticks that we talked about, either the screamer type of sticks. I mean, that, a broomstick or whatever. I mean, those are certainly practical things as well. But why haven't, in your estimation, why haven't a lot of these martial arts adapted to more modern weapons? How would you defend yourself against someone who might have brass knuckles on them, or a bottle? Remember that scene from Enter the Dragon when O'Hara broke the two bottles and made stabbing weapons with them and whatnot, and why
I'll give
haven't
you an
martial arts
example. That
adapted
is
to
a
that?
perfect example. My instructor always taught us to use a crescent kick versus a bottle, because a crescent kick is go straight up and straight down in a
Mm-hmm.
circle, almost like a roundhouse. Think of it, right? But for a
Mm-hmm.
kick. The crescent kick is a very good defense weapon against a sword, a knife, a bottle,
Mm-hmm.
anything stabbing. So let's say you miss for some odd reason. That's a good possibility. When you're aiming something when somebody's like coming at you, it's a 50-50 chance you're gonna hit that strike.
Right.
So you can hit a lot of different nerves that stuff, but you still will survive. That's key one number one. Now, teaching somebody to use weapons. Now you're adding a different danger zone in the law, pretty much. So if you already know your martial art and you use a weapon against that opponent, now you can get charged. So I think that's the factor when I'm missing. Back in the days, you really didn't have to answer to many people. Okay, you beat the guy who's coming at you with a sword. You defend yourself. You slice his head off. Okay, okay, you moved on your day. It wasn't that much of like they might come after you, the other clan. They say, "Why'd you kill my brother?" I'm like, he came after me first, dude.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to war with him, or you just figure it out wordly. There were no police involved back then, like that. Police, that's why they call them the medieval times still. Now today, factor. Imagine me and you. I'm the guy coming after you. All right, Paul, and you're
Mm-hmm.
you're a black belt like myself and Mandarin. You'll be able to take the weapon off me, and you defended me, and now you stab me. Now I'm in critical condition. All right, who are they going to charge?
I think it depends. I mean, if you're talking about in a self defense mode, now again, certain states, municipalities are going to have different rules when it comes to certain things. If you're talking about, can you carry a switchblade? Which I would think is going to be legal in certain states. I mean, you
It's
have
legal
certain
all over
states
the
that's,
United States.
what's that?
It's legal across the United States right now.
Okay, so again, in that, if you think it's in a self defense mode where someone attacks you or whatnot, so it's not going to be automatic in terms of whether or not you're going to be charged because you use a switchblade on somebody. So then you're gonna, so again, it's gonna really depend on the circumstances, who initiated, and was, I guess, what they would call reasonable force used. When someone's looking to do you bodily harm, you went to a weapon. I see it no different than using mace or the spray or or any other kind of thing, or even your key. If you're able to get a just a key and use that as like a stabbing weapon of some kind, you get somebody in the jugular or whatever, then that can certainly do some damage also. And good evening, Mariana. Good to see you tonight. So again, I don't think it's automatic. Whereas with those other weapons that you're talking about, like if you walk around with nunchucks, first of all, if you were like in school, like in high school, if they caught you with nunchucks, you were suspended. You know, they would take your
Even
nunchucks and you
expelled.
were, yeah. So again, there's certain, a lot of those ancient weapons, sai, if you had any of those weapons back in your possession, it was automatic suspension or expulsion or whatever, and confiscation of those items. And it'd be pretty hard to, even in a thing, would say, "Hey, this guy attacked me, so I use my nunchucks." So they're gonna ask you, well, "What are you doing with the nunchucks?" Because no one said that nunchucks were necessarily legal to use. So why not? So again, I think you teaching with more practical things that are either legal to have or don't classify as illegal weapons, I think would be a better practical adaptation. Because when you think about it, even back in the day, it was just adaptation. I mean, if that was
Mm-hmm.
the primary weapons used back in the day, knives, swords, sai, ninja, whatever it was, if that was the practical weapon of the day, then simply, if you want to keep with the philosophy of the art, is using what was available to you. Well, those things are not available to people in modern, in
So
modern terms. So
back
why not?
history. I'm
Was
sorry,
that
to back history. So all these weapons, scythes, nunchucks, bow staff, they originally came from farmers because the staff they used to put it across the back and carry
sure?
water up the hill. The scythe they used to stab the ground to
Right.
so the kamas they used to cut the grass with the kamas.
Hmm.
The tanfa, that one I'm not sure where it came from to be honest. The nunchucks too. There's only two weapons. I don't have the history of my head right now with like, originality.
Hmm.
But my thing is, what are you saying? Like, okay, practical weapons. A mace is a non-lethal weapon. The problem is, let's say you did reverse it and you did say stab me in my carotid artery, right? God forbid I died, whatever. You have to find somehow, some way, prove in court that you were in self-defense mode, and it was just you and him. Your word versus everybody else. You
Which
throw
is
the hammer.
50-50. Right. I mean, that's, again, were there witnesses? Was this just a one-on-one encounter? Were there witnesses who would, be able to verify, okay, this guy
So
charged you
the
and he was
tanfa
wailing
bag.
on you, and then you went to, like I said, you just grab your car keys. I know car keys, they're not as sharp
That's
and
the best weapon.
blunted
What are you
as,
talking about?
what's that?
I tell all my women
Now I'm saying,
friends.
if you look at the modern car key today, it's like it's a, it kind of flips out. It's like
Oh
this.
yeah, I'm not
It's
talking about
not
the old
sharp. It
school
doesn't have the
keys.
jagged edges. It doesn't have it can still do damage. I'm not saying that it can't, but it's not as dangerous as they once were because they're not as sharp and they're not as jagged. Like you could slice with a keychain 20 years ago, whereas today it's kind of like it's this long sort of square thing, and the carving of the key is actually on the inside of the key. But if you look at the edges of the key, it's smooth. So you're not going to be able to do as much damage with that unless it's a straight shot to a very sensitive area. You're not going to be able to do as much damage with it as before. I'm not saying it's still not practical, but again, even in that case, you're still going to have to prove whether or not was the person aggressive. Did if the person meant you bodily harm, you use whether the key or the bottle or the switchblade or whatever it was, whatever is legally in your possession, or the mace or anything else. Like if you don't have mace, you may have mosquito repellent, or you have aerosol deodorant or disinfectant or something, whatever it is that can blind somebody, and all those things can blind someone permanently. You know what I mean? I mean, you spray someone some Lysol spray, they can go blind from that. So, so again, any of those things, given in a in a legal proceeding, is still going to be on the, again, the initiator of the altercation. That still needs to be established. And if the person defending themselves wasn't, then I would still think they would have a pretty good chance of certainly beating any assault charges or whatnot, or assault with a deadly weapon or whatever. They have, of course, to defend themselves, especially in these states where, if you can carry a gun, open carry on your holster, then no one should have a problem with you having one of these other things. Although it's still, I would say, in those municipalities, again, nunchucks, three section bow staff, or sai or sword, or whatever, I would still think those are weapons that would still be considered no nos.
As much as I want to agree with
Yeah.
you, I can't because unfortunately, the black white officers, I mean black and white, I mean the uniforms, of course,
Hmm.
if they don't see it like that. Like as much as like I want to say that, I know the other factor you're forgetting here is when something like that goes down, their first person they're gonna point the finger at is the school, the dojo you're learning from. Oh, red dragon, black dragon, Christmas blue, whatever. Those are the okay. Why did you teach your students this? Now the
If you
school has a
frame it,
lawsuit.
I get it, but if you're framing it, if you're talking about a self defense class, right? So I mean, I think, I think the law, and again, I don't have the hard evidence on this, but if you're talking about all of this is for the purpose of self defense, using practical things that could be potentially in that person's possession, I think it makes it easier for you than saying, why did you train your students in using nunchucks? What practical reason do you have for the guys using nunchucks anywhere? So again, I think you're going to be more liable in those situations using weapons that are not, in some cases, not legal to carry versus some things that are legal. And you're just showing people how you can use such things, because people nowadays, they carry with them like pocket sized, you know,
Nice.
maybe like something like this, like a pocket sized deodorant. This here is a breath spray. So like I would do that as a breath spray. But again, spray this in someone's eyes has alcohol in it. See, spray this in someone's eyes to blind them, to get away from a situation or whatever. And if you're teaching how to use something like this in a practical setting, I can't see how the law can come against you in that setting. And even if the police officers arrest you, the arrest is not the final, right? Ultimately, it has to be proven beyond reasonable doubt in a court of law that you were using whatever it is that you were using with malintent or going above and beyond what was permissible or not to use. So again, I still can't see a school being on libel saying, "Hey, we're saying how to use your pocketbook," right? Because I know some women, I don't know like if your mom was like my mom, but my mom's pocketbook would let be like, you pick it up, it's like, what do you got in this thing? It's like 20, 30 pounds.
Don't remind me.
You
Half the
go,
men I know is like having a goddamn house in there.
I'm saying, but you go whacking somebody over the head with that, you can give somebody a concussion with one of those things if you teach them how to use it properly. So again, if your self defense class is saying, how can I use whatever I have on me as a weapon to defend myself against attack, then I still think that I would take my chances there because again, the alternative is not getting home or not getting saved. And I think you even wanted either you or Mandrell might have said on the last show we talked about this. The number one thing is to get home, right? Is stay
That is the
safe and get
ultimate
home.
goal.
So again, even if that lands you temporarily in a jail because you're arrested, you still get home and fight, take your battle or whatever and have the court system, let the justice system do its job in terms of determining your guilt or innocence. But it's much better to take that on in that situation rather than questioning or doubting yourself saying, oh, well, I don't know if this is going to be illegal or not. Or I don't know if this is going to reflect badly on my school or whatever if I
I'll
use
put it
this or
this way:
that or whatever.
in a self-defense, any self-defense, I don't care if you're going to jail or not. If you're defending yourself and your life is in danger, do what you need to do to protect your life,
For sure.
protect yourself. I don't care about the laws. I don't care about the cops. Those fucking pickers are gonna kiss my hairy Greek shiny ass. At the end of the day, they're not in that situation because they have a firearm. They have two firearms usually, and they can get away a lot more than we can.
Right.
So in my situation, kiss my Greek shiny ass.
Mhm.
Simple.
Yeah.
I
Do
really
you
wish
have
Trey
you
was
ever
here right
used
now.
those? What are those sticks? Those foldable metal sticks. You know the ones I'm talking about. So it's about this big. It might be like as big as this here, but when you snap it, it becomes like a foot
Oh, that's
long
a police
metal.
officer. Yeah, I know. Hang on, I gotta look it up. But
But it's like
before I
this
look,
very strong. Yeah, I've seen
yeah,
like
before I look it
demos
up,
of it and whatnot. But again, that's something that again somebody you can carry it in your pocket, or you can carry it in your purse. If again, if you're a woman, something that you can just snap it out and it's strong enough to to bash glass, shatter glass, and things of that nature as well.
I know a lot of
Um,
cops actually carry that now these days.
right, right,
Before it was those nightsticks. Can't remember what it's called, man. My brain just froze right now. I gotta look. I'm
right.
looking it up right now. Hang on a
Well,
second.
now you're right. Nightsticks, yeah. I mean, yeah, the billy clubs or the whatever that the cops used to use for sure. And also one thing that cops use, or even that people used to use. In fact, I remember back when I bought my first one. Remember the mag lights?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
never
So
used
if,
them.
especially if you got like the 4D, the 3D, or the 4D, the super long one. I remember when the guy, I'll never forget this. I bought one from a guy, this Asian guy, and he said, "You remember Rodney King?" And I said, "Yeah." I said they beat him with this. that, that was a selling point to me that you can literally use this as a weapon. So imagine again, you walking your dog at night, you have your mag light on. Some guy comes against you. Those things were used. I mean, they had demonstrations where they're smashing it against the concrete or whatever, and it won't break. You know what I'm saying? So certainly those types of devices, yeah. I mean, if you can show someone how to fight off or fend off somebody using a mag light, or similar device, I would take my chances there. I just would. I wouldn't, as a school, I would not certainly retreat from that, especially when, especially if you're in an area, students are coming from an area where, even harsher weapons or still could possibly be used. So I wouldn't shy away from that at all.
So I'm looking that up right now. Is I don't see the word. I know that you can still buy those. I know some of the officers' weapons now are declassified. As the way they call it. When I mean
Hmm.
declassified, they can buy them on the market.
Right.
Not all of them you can. Like I wish I had Trey. For once because I know he's an officer,
Yeah.
a retired officer. Excuse me, and he can go over this a little more details than I can. I could invite him to the next show or something. I
Right.
can't find it right now. But the one weapon I found is very interesting. It's called the Mag Pocket Staff. I've been looking at this for a while now. I've been
Hmm.
meaning to want to get one for myself for kicks and giggles. Now because I'm going to carry the damn thing. It's the
Hmm.
size of your staff check. And there's a pin on it. You pull the pin. I know it
Hmm.
sounds like a bomb, right? But you literally let go for a second and grab it immediately, and you get a full extended bow staff out of it.
Mm.
I think it's the
Right.
coolest shit in the world, to be honest with you.
Right.
But practical, if you hit somebody that's gonna bend, you're just gonna piss him off. It's
Yeah,
no
because yes, that's not
solid
gonna be
behind it.
solid.
When
Yeah.
you hit, you want it to be solid.
Correct.
My instructor, what he used to do with the bow staffs and the sticks. Oh man, I fucking hated those goddamn sticks. He used to take them, drill them hollow, and put a metal bar in the middle. I never understood that. Now that makes sense. So if you get hit with a stick with a metal bar in it, you're
Mm.
gonna learn fast not to get hit with it. Simple.
Right. Right.
A stick hurts, but a metal bar stick hurts even more.
I'm sure.
So I've been hit with both, not on purpose, by accident. And as you're going around, you're striking 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, you going, and you're gonna miss. It happens, and you hit your knuckles by accident. Pop on, oh shit, my bad, dude. And I'm like, but once you miss by accident, you know better to block or get out of the way or whatever the case is. You're not gonna want to get hit with a stick by accident. Trust me, with a metal bar in it, whoo, yeah, you're gonna feel that shit, and you're going fast.
Right.
My instructor, Master Ray with Shin, his son, used to go so fucking fast with those sticks.
Hmm.
They used to start smoking. I
Yeah.
cannot tell you how many times the fire alarm went off on those damn things.
Right.
People say, "Oh, it couldn't happen." Like, oh yeah, go look at them. I know other instructors
Yeah.
who one in PA actually. He used to go so fast with sticks. He used to set off the fire alarm because it was just enough to. It was smoking a little bit, but it was
Hmm.
enough to set off the fire alarm. If that makes
Right.
sense.
Right.
So, with the fighting style, here's the one I'm gonna hit right now. It should be coming any minute. You said around 10 o'clock. So
Mm.
it doesn't matter on your size, tall, short, chubby, like me, um, big, big muscle guy like Paul. Techniques, and I personally believe it's technique. Some people say it's all power. Which one do you think, Paul?
Um, it's a little difficult. I mean, I'm leaning power, but it depends. If you got a guy who's, if size doesn't matter, again, you get a, like I said, 300-pound guy, you're a 150-pound guy, and just the very act if that guy is able to land on you, just bodily, just on you, that may take a lot of your technique sort of out the window. Or the fact that, your technique, will you be able to land with the power to even hurt the guy? Um, there was a video I saw, a guy, he was doing these running, jumping kicks into like a 100-pound heavy bag. It was like it was hanging, it was, kind of hanging from the ceiling, whatever. So he goes in, he kicks it, it goes flying the other direction. Then they showed not the same guy, but another guy using a similar technique it looked like a Japanese, and I don't know, the promotion was K1 or, Pride or whatever it was. Guy did the same thing against a much bigger guy, and he bounced off him. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't move him at all with with that technique, but it looks really impressive when he's going against the heavy bag. So I think that again there are limitations when we talk about size doesn't matter. I think it certainly depends. I certainly believe that the skill big guy beats the skill little guy. Um, but I think if a person learns how to use that additional size or power to their advantage, I still wouldn't favor the little guy. Or you have to be so precise with your strikes to hit vital areas like the eyes or the throat or the groin. Just those vulnerable areas of the body that are affected no matter what. I would still give some deference to the larger guy with more power, but the speed guy or the skills guy, he better be very good with where his placement of his strikes are in order to pull that off.
So here's where I'm gonna push back now again.
Okay.
So let's say the guy is 300, what, 250, 300, or say?
Yeah, big guy.
Let's say 300 for argument's sakes.
Hmm.
So if most big guys I ever met and trained against, they always have the one same thing common. They use their size as their weapon, and that's where I come in and embarrass them. So the one guy I remember, he literally tried to bull rush me. Yeah, biggest mistake he ever made in his life. So when you bull rush, do you remember the Captain Kirk throw? Any chance?
The Captain Kirk throw.
Mm-hmm. Original Star
Not as
Trek show when Kirk
right.
used to go on his back and throw people over his head.
Oh yeah, they called that a monkey flip. I thought.
Okay, that is actually called a circle throw in the martial art community. It's a real throw.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is one of the first techniques you actually learn. It's the most easiest technique you'll learn because somebody's bumming rushing you. You can take their momentum. It's literally what comes up, what comes down needs to go up. Same concept. So he comes at you, and you hit back, roll backwards. You put your one leg in his thigh, one leg in his stomach, and as you roll back, you just start pushing up, and let gravity take the rest. It's momentum. People looking, no, it can't be that easy. Really? Let's try it. I'm like, what? Let's try it. I went to one guy, my dojo. He goes, well, I'm a big guy. I don't want to get hurt you. I want to get sued. Like, no, don't worry. I'll sign a waiver like you will. Okay, he goes, what's the bet? He goes, 5,000. I goes, what? If you can beat me, I'll give you 5,000. If I beat you, you just admit to from my class you were wrong. Simple. Oh, that's fair. Okay, that's good. Okay, you got 3 chances. I go to him. Okay, comes at me. Boom. Whoop. I'm like, oh, what? I was right. Okay, I go. All right. Okay, let's try again. Come at me. I go to him. I'm like, I wasn't right that time either, man. I'm like, okay, one more time. Remember, 3 chances. Your last chance. I went to him. You got 5,000 on the line. You wouldn't come at me like I stole your wife. I went to him. Whatever you want to, whatever motivates to piss you off. Did it again. Whoop. I'm like, well, listen, I'm not losing any money tonight. Man, that's not fair. That's not fair. He goes to me. How is it not fair? Because it's martial arts. Judo. That's a judo throw. Simple. Judo is very known for using your own body as a seesaw effect.
Right.
What goes up comes down. I'm using this as an example, of course. Now, with striking, you have to really check your opponent carefully. And the reason I say that, I was in a tournament. A guy was 6'2" at least. He wasn't a big guy. I want to say maybe 185 tops.
Right.
He was throwing roundhouse. Excuse me, not roundhouse. I apologize. Hook kicks. Round hook kicks. Tornado hook kicks. Here we go. My brain just froze. Tornado hook kicks. You're literally spinning 360.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't stopping. When one down, he had already the next one going. He was going in a circle. And usually that would have taken me out if I didn't know what I was doing. But when you're turning at one point, as you're turning, as you get to this point, you're exposing your head and your back cleared.
Right.
And you're blind. So that's why they call blind techniques. Because you can't see anything when you're spinning. Like the spinning back fist. Same concept. The only difference, the spinning back fist is a lot faster than that spinning hook kick.
Sure.
So I looked at him like, this is an easy point. I went as he spun, and when his head was exposed to this point of me, that was my point to react. I went, boop, just a quick palm head to the head. Just goes, point. That wasn't fair. I'm like, I'm taller. The judge looked at him like, yeah, and so what? I'm bigger. The judge replied, and so what? He goes, again, this is martial arts. He goes, technique is the best way to do it at the end of the day. I can't sit there and argue. I can't win man who comes on. We're going to have that argument tonight. He said it in the last episode, last week's hangout. He saw a guy half the size knock somebody out.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if you hit the jaw correctly and a right angle, nothing's going to stop
Well, that's
you.
what. But that's why I said earlier. It's about, again, you better be very good at finding and targeting those vulnerable areas. There's going to be there's the eyes, there's the groin, there's the jugular or the neck, the throat. There's or again, if you find that sweet spot on the and again, more times than not, knockouts come because of the punch that you don't see coming versus the one that you do. So
Mhm.
again, how do you then counter that? That's going to be really at issue. So I agree that again on any given time, if I catch you blind, that I have a good chance of either snapping, especially if I did the head snap or whatever, or your neck, you can certainly affect someone with that kind of blow. But are you going to be in position to get that close to throw that strike? I'm just saying that's easier said than done. And even in the example when you were talking about the guy who you challenged for the for the flips and everything, it's still kind of loaded because you already know what he's going to do before he does it, and you simply just counter it. But in a practical fighting situation, you don't know what anyone's going to be able to do at a certain time. So you're going to have that split second to really to prepare for what the guy's about to do. So even in that
Correct.
situation, I'm thinking it's still a little, I wouldn't call it staged, but it's sort of predetermined because you already know what defense he's going to go. If he's just switched it up and say didn't charge you and did something else, you'd be like, hey, that's not fair. You're supposed to charge me. You didn't do it. But in a practical street fighting situation, you may not be prepared for that either. So
See,
I
that
still,
day
yeah.
I was prepared for whatever he brought me. If he got me down, fine, cool, whatever. I
Mm-hmm.
give him credit. I didn't expect him to bum rush me 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
But if he came a bear hug me, okay, that's easy way. Boom, oh freaking. That's all it takes. There's one little claw, we call it eagle's beak. Eagle's beak to the wrist. That would let it go
Mm-hmm.
immediately. If he tried to put me in a mason hold, very simple to get out of that too. They're always
Mm-hmm.
one taking. I'm not saying all these are perfect. I've been in a situation myself. Somebody put a mason hold. I literally try to get it. He put me in. I try to get out of it, and the same thing that I always do. Try to get out of it, and that
So
time
let me,
didn't
so
work.
let,
I'm sorry.
no, now finish your point. Finish your point.
I couldn't get out of it, so I had to switch it up. So I couldn't get out of my normal techniques. So I kept calm and I went for something else. I did a monkey
Right.
pinch, and it worked.
Right. So let me ask you this, because I know you, and I know we've trained together, at the gym and whatnot. You wouldn't necessarily, you're like the strongest guy. Like a 135 bench is pretty good for you. Like say 135 for 10 reps. That's a pretty good bench press in your case.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think there's then the merit then? Because I know one thing that Mandrell talked about last time he was on the show is that how the strength training, when he got big, when he really got into the weightlifting, how much that dramatically changed his fighting style and ability. But it seems like in your case, weight training really hasn't been, or you haven't pushed the weight training to such an extent that made you exceedingly strong, that it seems like you were able to do a lot of things in a relatively I'm going to say weak position, but certainly you weren't necessarily needing to utilize a lot of strength or muscle or what have you in order to defeat your opponents then. So your approach to strength training then, is it necessary for people to develop themselves physically, and I'm not talking about the conditioning. I'm not talking about like deadening of nerves and things like that to make your fists or your forearms, hard as a rock and
That's
anything. I'm talking
conditioning. Two
about
different things.
right.
First,
I know that's what I'm saying. I'm taking that out of it. I'm
yeah,
saying do you put a lot of value then, since you were able to do all these things being a smaller individual and not necessarily a stronger individual, but you were able to have a lot of success against persons just in your own strength, which isn't, at least on paper, it doesn't seem to be a lot. So do you even value strength training to the same way, say, like a Mandrell does, who said that his technique and his ability to be in combat increased dramatically because of the additional strength that he developed through the weightlifting, the deadlifting, the bodybuilding, those kind of lifts. So it seems like I'm hearing two separate thoughts here on the value of that. And what was your experience when you were heavy into it? Did you guys have a weight room where you guys were lifting weights and doing things, or was it all calisthenics and push up, sit ups, and knuckle push ups or
See,
whatever?
there are two different theories here right now with me. Theory number one with Master Ray's. Master Ray's theory was didn't he hit the weight room on his personal time, but on an everyday class we didn't have a weight room, and he always said, if you want training in the weight room, let me know. We'll hook up. I'll teach you guys this. Um, is important. It's very important still to hit the weight room because you
Hmm.
need to work on those muscles. The weights does not develop without the weights. You cannot develop some muscles. End of story. I don't care who you are. The strength has a role with it. It has a little role in it. I'm not gonna deny it. I'm not saying it's a major role. Out of 10, I'll give it a 2%.
So
You know,
that's what I'm saying. That's why I think you and Mandrell would differ when he comes on, because I think with
absolutely.
him, he might put
We
it on
already
the
said
latter
that.
half of the scale. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Before we get going, David, what's up, man?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm listening to the discussion, the debate, and hearing about weight and
Yeah,
to
we're talking
training.
about, right now we're at the point where we're talking about does your strength in the weight room make a difference in the arena? Is that correct, Paul?
Is yes and
y-
no on that
yeah.
in many
Go
ways.
ahead. What's your opinion on that, dude?
We never saying yes, no. It depends on what kind of weight training you are implying. Because
Bingo.
as a martial artist myself, I had that same dilemma because one, I got into the weight room, which was okay, but my issue was I don't want to pound on too much muscles that will limit my flexibility.
But that myth, hasn't that been disproven
No, it to the
over time, that
it
having
to a
additional
degree.
muscle mass does not limit your flexibility? You've seen, but
That is
I've seen
true.
bodybuilders do crazy splits and things of
No,
that
no.
nature.
Almost anybody can do a split, which is fully understandable. But for people who partake in martial art, we know it. Split is not that's one of the main part. It's performing certain moves that you start to notice certain muscle can hinder you in certain places.
Mhm.
I'm not saying you're not supposed to build muscle. Yes, you can build muscle. There's a reason why you have people in karate who wear weight around their ankle, around their wrist, right? That's also part of strength training, but do it in a very different variant than you just lifting weight, for example. Now, my issue is that I wanted to make sure I maintain my strength, but I don't get too big and too bulky, whereby even though people say that's not the case, but it is the case when you go into a sparring match. You start to notice things when you're sparring with somebody, whereby certain range that you used to have before, it now become limited. Then you start to realize that, oh no, I can't do this no more. Or you do a certain kind of kick, you start to feel it. That, whoa, 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 this don't feel right here. That's when you start to find out you want to balance it out. This is why you have certain type of strength training that you see in martial art, in karate, in kung fu. It's not similar to what you see in a gym. You have people who put weight on their ankle, weight on their wrist, they wear weighted jacket, they do all kind of things. They're running a long mile with weight on their body. That's another level
David, can I
of
cut you off
strength
for one
training.
second, please?
Go ahead.
Like a good example. I know this is sound very stupid and silly what I'm about to say. The greatest example is Dragon Ball Z. Goku used to wear all these weighted equipment, a
Hmm.
vest, an ankle, and all of that, and that's how
Hmm.
he always trained. I know it sounds silly because it's a cartoon, but that part is actually realistic. Go ahead, David. Finish up what you're gonna say. I'm sorry, I
No,
cut you off.
I'm glad you mentioned that because even the person who created Dragon Ball knew that very, very well.
He's a
Because
mixed martial artist, I
several
think, isn't he?
there's several times when he created a episode whereby the character got bulky muscle and they lost their flexibility and they lost their speed because they bulked up too much. So you point out, you want to be a balance between muscle and strength and speed, whereby your muscle cannot be too big and too huge that it limits your speed and your flexibility, and your muscle cannot be so small and lean whereby you don't have the impact. There has to be a balance between both sides. That is something what every martial artist have a problem with.
Hmm.
Either they like it or they don't, because you know your own body better than anybody else. So when you do a certain kick when you didn't have too much muscle, then you do the same kick when you have so much muscle, you start to know there's a difference. Yeah, you may feel the power, yeah, but do you have more range? Same thing when you're throwing a punch. You
But
may throw
even
the
when you're doing those things, what is the goal in landing the kick or throwing the punch? In what arena are we talking about? Because I can see what you're saying if you're talking about a point system, where it's just it doesn't matter the impact or whatever. Did you score? Did you land it? But if you're talking about actually doing something that's going to do some damage, either going to push someone back or disable someone or get them off their feet or whatever, I think in a more practical situation, I think those things are going to matter more than just the technique of landing. What's the purpose of landing
and
something
and
if
you
it's
are
not going to
correct.
hurt anyone?
You're 1,000% correct, and that's what I say. That is the challenge for every martial artist, trying to find that perfect balance. Some find out they can pack on muscle, but only to a particular limit. But they don't want to limit their speed. They want to have the speed and the impact and the power combined in one.
Hmm.
That's why I say certain workout routine may look like barbaric to folks in the gym, but people in the martial art realm know it's not barbaric. They have real functionality behind it.
Right. But don't you think today, um, if you look at any whatever theater of martial arts you want to talk about, either in practical terms or in combat sports, MMA, if you
Hmm.
look at martial artists, say from 50 years ago, right? Those guys had no, I mean, and really it was Bruce Lee. Again, give credit to him also. He was the first guy, at least that I know of. I'm not saying that there weren't other guys who weren't promoters of weight training. And we know his programs. We can look up his programs. He did,
Hmm.
3 sets of bench press and 3 sets of squats. And he had his programs very listed out. But you didn't see guys. I think what I think took a lot of people by surprise with Bruce was how well developed he was. Everybody else had no definition. Nobody had abs. No one had any kind of muscle because again, there was a belief at the time that if you're muscular, then people can find your pinpoints, your
or
your
slow you
your
down.
your points for locks and things of that nature. But now, if you look at again, you look at the MMA guys. If you look at some of the guys like Michael Jai White, you look at I mean these are like very muscular Billy Blanks, very muscular men
Hmm.
who still had the skill, who still had the flexibility to do certain things. So I mean, it's like in all sports. I mean, for so long, weight training was the boogeyman. In basketball, that you were discouraged. When I played basketball, our coach didn't want us lifting weights because it said it threw off our shot. But now, if you look at what happened, like with Michael Jordan, when after he got tired of getting beat up by the Pistons, he put on like 20 pounds of muscle so he can, do a better job. You see LeBron James, the guy spends $1 million a year in the gym, um, it's almost an aftermath. And when you see like a Nikola Jokic or a the guy who was just in the finals for the Dallas Mavericks, those are like rare exceptions. Like they're made fun of to an extent by how out of shape they look. Hey, they're pudgy, they're fat, they don't have any muscle on them or whatever. But most basketball players today, if you look at soccer players, baseball, I mean, Aaron Judge of the Yankees and the other guy, uh, the other slugger for the Carlos something, I forget his name. Huge muscular guys. They said if you could put on too much muscle in baseball, it would hurt your swing. But we had Mark McGuire hitting 70 home runs. So I still think there's an aspect to weight training, bodybuilding, and even if it's just the basic lifts, deadlift, squat, and bench press. If you just had those three, you don't need to be doing 20 million curls or whatever, or muscle shaping sort of movements, as they say, but just those core lifts that really develop your core. That I think I think martial artists would benefit more than lose by investing some time into those things rather than pulling away from it. But I think just the athlete has changed dramatically, certainly since the 70s when no athlete had muscle. I mean, look at you. The only guys that had somewhat muscle is like some of the football players, and even those guys compared to the guys coming out now, they didn't have those shoulder trap. Remember the traps were like up to here. It was like they were wearing football pads, shoulder pads, or whatever. No, that's their traps. The guys in the 70s didn't have that kind of thing going on. So I just think overall the athlete of today, muscle is more times than not a good thing that's going to improve your performance over time more so than hurt you. So I'm still surprised that we still have this debate even in martial arts today in terms of how much is too much
So
or
let
whatever.
me ask you a question, Paul. When you remember Bruce Lee, he was a pretty small guy, right?
Yeah, but he was. I mean, you look,
Hang on,
but
hang
he
on.
was jacked.
Yeah, hang on. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not done yet. So most martial artists you see, no, I'm not talking about UFC. I'm talking martial artists now. Not the newer ones. I'm talking about the younger ones now, the older ones. They're always skinny, right? Right.
What you talking about today?
Back in the day, I'm talking about like
Back in
not today.
very little, very thin, very little muscle tone, no chest development. You even saw it in the film. Go back to the Shaw films back in the 70s, right? The Venom films. Only one guy was known for, and that was the guy who was the Toad. He was the only guy who was like muscular, right? Everybody else was like wafer thin, had no chest, no pecs, nothing. It was like, it was looked at. He was looked at as a freak of his day. Bolo from Enter the Dragon, who was an actual bodybuilder. He actually was competed as a competitive bodybuilder, but they were freaks of their day. It wasn't normal to see guys like that. Jackie Chan, it wasn't normal to see guys like that had that kind
So
of muscle on them.
the theory behind that sculpture body is not because you don't want to be big. It's not having to do that. Bigger you are slower. Facts. That's physics, and you can agree with me this. When you're even man said last week on his last week on this episode, he said when he was over 200, he had a hard time fighting.
No, when he was over 250.
I'm sorry, 250. I apologize.
Yeah.
When he was over 250. And I think Mander is a lot taller than me. I think he's probably your type. I'm not mistaken.
No, he's 5'8".
Okay, so 250 for 5'8". That's a lot of weight you're supposed
Yeah.
to do. So that will slow you down. I don't care who you are. So martial artists have this mentality. You can build muscle. They have nothing against the muscle. They want a thinner body frame because this becomes a lot harder to do with the 50 pounds more versus start doing Wing Chun and you're going to start losing your breath. It's more about cardio than anything, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's how long can you keep up? People don't realize that. It takes a while to keep up. So when you're adding the 50 pounds, that 50 pounds might not sound a number. To us, 50 pounds, it's not a lot of pounds.
Depends on your if you're 100 and let's say if you're 150 65 pounds, that's a lot. So I'm saying I would just modulate. I would say maybe 25, 30 pounds. Or let's say 20 pounds. If you're 185, 165, you get up to 185. And you add the conditioning to it. I think that helps you generally, in terms of being able to, to better be able to defend yourself, to better be able to, land punches with power, to be able to resist when people try to put you into different holes or whatnot, the ability to resist being put into positions that can end a fight.
I will say
Again,
this.
yeah.
When you see a guy come down who's about 250, ripped as fuck, and it's intimidating. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't care who you are. I mean, you be the best fighter in the world and say, "Oh, I'm not scared of him." Sure you're not. That's bullshit. If you see a guy who's completely jacked coming towards you, about to rip your head off, it's a intimidating factor too. It's a mind game thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't care how you put it. Weight has a lot to do with it.
Mm.
Skinny you are, faster you move. As a person who's weighing only 150 versus somebody who's 250 can move a lot faster than the 100-pound more person. Am I making sense what I'm saying here, Paul?
I think you are, but it gets into one of the questions that we are going to ask tonight. I know we're waiting for Mandrell to join us, but when you talk about the modern evolution, I definitely think strength training is a part of the modern evolution. Again, how have traditional martial arts been adapted into modern sports practices such as MMA? What impact has this had on the martial arts community? I think, again, back in the 60s, 70s, and before Bruce Lee came, weightlifting or any kind of bodybuilding or anything was considered taboo for the sport. And I think that certainly adding those elements to, most of these, especially the top pros in boxing, in MMA, they all have strength and conditioning coaches now. It's not just one coach teaching you the martial arts technique or whatever. It's they have the diet coach. They have the strength and conditioning coach. There's a lot more people with brought on to do very specialized things to help these fighters, be in the best position to win, combining the strength, the technique, and the speed and all those elements to it. But I certainly think that again, just looking at the physiques themselves. I mean, any MMA fight that you see, everybody's ripped. In part to get down to weight. I mean, that's another
That's
that's another
typical.
factor as well. They're
That's
trying
part
to
for
get down
UFC.
to
It's
a
definitely
scale, so you're going to starve yourself a little bit. But still, when these guys get in the ring, you can see the muscles, you can see the lats, you can see the biceps, you can see the abs, you can see the quadriceps. Those are things that I've seen very few guys out of shape fighting in UFC. I think there was one guy who I think Frank Mir and I think a couple other guys at heavyweight maybe weren't necessarily the most diced guys that are out there. And I get it. You can go all the way up to that guy Bob Sapp, who is like on the far end. I mean, that guy would peter out after one round. He's huffing and puffing because he's too big. So I agree. There's limits to being too muscular or too big going against
I'll
competition.
give you a great example. It
Yeah.
was a UFC fight with JDF, Jesse David Frank, the Razor White Ranger. He was a real martial artist, real professional fighter.
Hmm.
So he fought this guy. I can't remember how. He was a pretty big fucking guy. I put it this way, David. No offense, but the big guy was David was skinny versus this guy. That's how big he
Hmm.
was.
Yeah.
And he bum wrestled. He had upper hand. He was on top. Usually, when you're on the bottom and your opponent's on top, usually he has the higher ground.
Right.
But he was able to win it in under the first round. I don't remember how long it was, but because how small he was able to move her a certain way and get out of it.
That is
Right.
Does that
facts.
make sense?
Now, here's a question I want to throw into you guys. We talk about strength training, right?
Hmm.
Will calisthenics be considered to be strength training? Yes or no?
I think so. Yes.
I think it's conditioning. No, I don't. As far as you getting sure, I think most calisthenics work on your endurance. I don't believe unless you're naturally jacked. The guys who look jacked doing say they only do push-ups, like Herschel Walker, former NFL player. He was known for doing 2,000 push-ups a day, 2,000 sit-ups a day, and all that kind of stuff. And he said he never lifted weights, but I think he was just a genetic freak to begin with. There's people called mesomorphs. There's endomorphs, ectomorphs, and mesomorphs. Mesomorphs are just naturally muscular folks who it seems like all they got to do is breathe and they put muscle on. And so I think there is a genetic component to people being muscular. Look at their parents, look at their,
And I and
their,
I
their, their
and I get that. We don't throw that one into the play because we look at the art of karate. Karate require them to do massive amount of push-up, massive amount of sit-up, massive amount of squat, all the type of calisthenics because as you get to another level, you're pushing your body beyond its own limit.
Mhm,
Imagine telling somebody who's in their brown belt or black belt, I do like 500 push-ups every morning, every evening.
mhm.
It take a toll on the body, but
Yeah.
after a while, it does not no more because all of a sudden, all that 500 push-up morning and after it paid off to the point the punching power it's ridiculous,
Mhm,
and you're afraid to get hit because it's like I met my sensei who used to do 200 push-ups every morning, every evening, and
mhm,
we spar, and I have to feel the strength of a conditioning from doing that much push-up every single. You know what it's like when someone hit you, you think that person is not human no more.
mhm.
That's
I know
the
very
Right.
well.
feeling. That's from karate. That's from Thai boxing. Certain martial art. where it requires you to push your body beyond its physical limit.
Right.
It is it's calisthenic strength training in a degree, but it going to the next level whereby you really are packing the muscle, but it's not the regular muscle that people expect you to pack.
Um, I certainly get the conditioning that can take place from a person who engages in doing that many uh um in terms of calisthenics. I mean, because again, I mean, if you're gonna be huffing and puffing after a minute or two, then yeah, the guy who's probably doing the calisthenics, he can certainly be in there longer. But as far as again the strength component, I'm still not totally convinced on that because just in practical terms. And again, I know you see these guys on YouTube and they talk about, hey, I only do push-ups and sit-ups and everything. You even had those guys, Cali Muscle and those guys from the West, all those guys, but they were all on the weights initially, all of them, and they also took steroids on top of that. So again,
That
you
is
know,
known. That is very known.
yeah, so I'm saying a lot of these guys who talk about, yeah, I only do calisthenics and they got six pack and ripped and jacked and all that. It's either genetics or they were on the so now I think that stuff can help you maintain. Like once you pack it on, but you got to put the clay on. You know what I'm saying? And I think unless you're doing that through the training, tearing muscle fibers, then also the recuperation, which is another reason why I don't think it puts on. Because if you're doing that every day, how are you recovering? If you tear muscle, how muscle is built, you have to tear the muscle fibers. Then you have to give them time to heal and repair and go stronger than they were last time. If you're doing that sort of thing every single day, your body, I think, can certainly get used to the activity, but you're not going to necessarily be able to pack on that much more muscle. Now, again, anybody, if you've done no push-ups, if you've done no strength training at all, and you start doing push-ups, yes, you're going to get a benefit to doing those push-ups if that's something that you're not used to. But if you're like already into weight training and whatnot, again, I go into sessions where I may do just, I can knock out 50, or I may do in a night 150, 200 push-ups or whatever. uh, you know, you certainly feel, the blood flow in the muscles or whatnot. But I never expected push-ups to make me jacked because I actually went on a program. I did this P90X program for like a year. Certainly for the 90 days. And I got more conditioned. 100%. My conditioning increased dramatically. My strength when I went back to the bench press or any kind of pushing movements, it took me a year to get my strength back from doing that. So I think certainly for conditioning purposes, yes, I think the calisthenics can have a lot of great benefit to it. But again, as far as the ability to control someone or to push them against, your resistance your force be greater than their resistance, I think you got to put some go beyond, you know when you can bench press more than your own body weight. Now you're in a position where you can make people move against their will. Assuming you're a pretty decent guy yourself. I mean, if you're 135 benching 150, I still don't think you're going to be able to push a guy around. But I'm 230, and on my, I use a lever press, but I've done 400 on that thing. So I can get to a point where I can get a guy to move against his resistance to move. I think at that point. So I think both are valuable. I'm not dissuading one from another, but I still wouldn't put the push-ups and things in the strength training category unless you've never done anything in your life. So again, for a kid, that's why they say even kids, you shouldn't even be strength training like that with weights until you're at least 14 years old, because they say your bones aren't fully fused and formed yet. So you shouldn't even be doing strength training until you're at least 14. So for kids like, 8, 10, 12 years old, then yeah, push-ups and all those calisthenics, they're perfectly fine. But once you start getting your testosterone, your puberty starts kicking in, then I think the weight training could certainly take you to another level. And that's been proven over and over again in all sports, especially like in football. I mean, again, even in football, there was like a resistance. In fact, I was watching a video on Vince Lombardi and the Packers, and Vince Lombardi and his Packers were one of the first teams in the NFL to really integrate weight training into football. So you had even football players weren't really big on the weights. They did a bunch of calisthenics, and you see the tire drills and the running and hitting the blocking dummies and things like that. But you didn't see these guys really breaking away. Vince Lombardi really modernized and brought that into the NFL. And then also in the 70s, Nautilus, the founder of Nautilus, Arthur Jones, and his machine line were all over the NFL. If you ever watched the film North Dallas 40, it was kind of like a movie spin off the Dallas Cowboys. All you see in there is these Nautilus machines. And it was like an introduction to a lot of people who never saw an Nautilus machine and never saw how these guys really get down in football. So by the 60s and 70s, the mind started changing that, hey, we need to get this, get these weight training programs and put these guys on things to come in. And a lot of times, especially if you go to pro level, they said, look, they want you to put on 15, 20 pounds because you're playing at college level, but you talk about the best in the NFL. These guys are bigger and faster than you at that level. So they're not saying that they're not going to compromise size for speed at the NFL level. If you want to play at the NFL level, you better develop both of them. And so they combine those things together.
So here's my thing now. When I hear conditioning, I have a different mentality when it comes to conditioning, or different definition. I mean, actually, definition is a better word. Conditions to me is literally toughening your hands,
Yeah.
toughening your stomach. That is conditioning. When it comes to doing push-ups and sit-ups like that, that's not conditioning to me. That is working out. So you can get stronger. I've seen people doing pull-ups, 100 pull-ups a day, and their back is just destroyed. They're ripped. Like Arnold, great example. He always used to start out with pull-ups every single workout, 100 of them, and his back was destroyed, in a good way, of course. I mean, so when it comes down to doing what you're saying here, I don't think you only need weight. You also need calisthenics, like you said. But conditioning to me is something different for most martial arts. David, is that the same thing for you? You fall asleep again? I
I'm
think you're
here.
snoring again. Oh, yeah. Is
No, no.
conditioning to you is toughening your muscle, your skin, pretty much, your body, or is it actually working out?
Conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
it do have a combination with both your skin and your muscles. Because, perfect example, sit up. Trying to do 2 to 300 sit up to build that ab upstairs. When somebody kick you, you can barely feel it. That's not the skin part. That's the muscle part.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Because women know this very, very well. They get kicked in the stomach
Don't
will
remind
do
me.
way more than knock the wind out of you.
Hmm.
I'm gonna puke.
Puke, and you gonna make you crap on yourself.
I'm being nice.
I'm being completely honest.
Right.
So imagine someone who, so imagine someone who's doing 300 to 400 sit-ups every single day, and you trying to punch or kick this guy, and you can barely. You have these guys in Thailand who like to show off their ab of steel, and they got people punching their ab. They're smiling at you. They're laughing at you like,
Hmm.
and you're wondering how they get there because in Thai boxing, oh, you get kicked in the stomach a lot. You
Yeah.
get kicked in the rib a lot.
Yeah.
So if you don't have that type of conditioning, it's not the skin that getting conditioned. It's the muscle, it's the ab, it's the solar plex. If you don't have that type of strength, anybody in this US who get kicked in the stomach or kicked in the side will break down in a second compared to
If
someone
you
who is
remember,
conditioning.
David, let me cut you off one second. Multi fighters, they're a different breed. I seen some of them in the United States training in multi, kicking a goddamn stop sign, not the sign, the pole, and they're destroying it.
Hmm.
It's literally magnoed. That is a condition on the next level. I
Hmm.
couldn't even reach that. I don't even think
Hmm.
David can reach that.
Right.
No, for me to reach that, you got to start from a young age
That too.
because all they're doing. I remember when I was doing karate back in my high school, back in our country, and we started to practice kick a palm tree. I'm not gonna lie to you. I tried kick a palm tree. All I could feel is the white light shine right between my eye. I was like, that level of pain,
Right.
it's uncalled for. But imagine these people who were trained them as kids at a young age over a long period of time. And you got people breaking huge bones with their shin, breaking bricks with their shin, breaking three baseball bat with their shin. That is conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree.
So
Also, I think conditioning, or at least the way I do it from a training perspective, um, I think we're, in a way, we're talking about the same thing because we're talking about specificity. I think conditioning is ultimately about specificity. So you guys are looking at it as far as conditioning a specific body part to either to be able to resist a force or take to be able to take the trauma of force upon it. But the way I've always looked at conditioning is also very specific because it's about basically allowing the body to be able to perform a function as efficiently as possible. So, like a lot of times, for example, let's say if you could do, guys, you've seen guys in a weight room on the lat pull down machine, and they can do the rack, like put the pin at the bottom rack and just pull all the weight down on the machine. But the person can't do five pull ups, but with their own body weight, because that's a conditioning thing. And one doesn't have anything to do with the other. I've seen guys who can do 50 chins, on the bar, but they might only be able to do half the weight on the rack. So I think conditioning, has a lot to do with. So let's say if you did something that you never did for the first time, like I said earlier, push-ups. If you've never done push-ups before, then there's going to be a conditioning component in that gets your body initially. You're going to be exhausted from doing a few push-ups. But the reason why you're able to build reps over time is that the body is able to adapt and realize, like, oh, when it's doing something for the first time, your body throws everything at it. Like your whole being goes into this activity because the body hasn't been trained in terms of what resources to use. It's like if you got like a light switch panel, you turn on all the lights. But the more you do it, the body gets so used to it that, oh, I can turn these lights off. I don't have to send every fiber, every amount of energy into doing this particular thing. The body gets very used to doing something with the fewest amount of things possible. So when a person who runs for distance, initially you can't do a mile, but if you keep doing it on a regular basis, you realize it's like the body's like, oh, I don't have to throw all my resources at it. So you're able to run 2 miles and then 3 miles and so on and so forth. Because again, there's an efficiency that's built up. So I think conditioning is very specific to what it is that you're doing. No one can say that I'm a conditioned athlete. You're only conditioned to your task. If I take a guy from one sport and try to put him in another sport that he's not used to, let alone he or she doesn't have the skills for it, they're going to be exhausted at the end of the day of doing it because they're not trained to do that on a regular. But the more you do it, your body adapts. So I think conditioning is ultimately about adaptability. You guys are talking about it from the end product, whether it be the fist or the hand or the whatever or the abs. I'm talking more about it to the ability to do an action, a specific action repeatedly to such an extent where it's done in the most efficient way possible.
and I'm glad you said that because I'm not trying to sidetrack the conversation because there's a few military active guys who are personal trainers and they combine both sides of that science
Hmm.
and they're able to produce next level strength, which is unheard of, and they're all over social media.
Right.
There's one guy named Diamond. I followed that guy for a good couple of years. The
Mm.
type of workout he was doing, it got the people in the gym looking like he's some weirdo.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, and he's active in the military, right? He
Yeah.
lift heavy weight. But when time for him to do the chin up,
Mhm.
he he kicked everybody out of the water. You would think
Yeah.
like, are you really human?
Yeah.
And like there's like three or four other guys doing the same thing. They figure out the formula. They're in the army or in the marine or in the air Force, and they're doing crazy things with their body. They figure out the solution to it because you can have both. The problem is it takes time to build that into the body. And some of these guys, I know they past 30 or 40, but they don't look their age.
Mhm.
Because that conditioning and the workout and the strength, it did something to their body that it's unheard of. That have been a debate. I'm not gonna lie. As a martial artist, as a person who like to be in the gym, that always have been debate. What if I push myself and do this every single day,
Mm.
non-stop?
Yeah.
What will
Hey,
happen to my body?
yeah. David, can I ask you something? Now again, you strike me. I've never met you personally, but you strike me as a naturally large man. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that is fair to say because I'm 6 foot tall right now. Last time I weighed myself, I was over 300 pounds. Oh, you caught me off guard.
I'm saying back in the days, like so
Eating.
when you started martial arts,
Hmm.
did you consider yourself at the time were you a relatively large person?
I wasn't a large person then when I started martial art. I was kind of like in between looking like a skinny boy or so, but the moment I got into martial art, I started doing the push up every day, every morning, every afternoon, every evening. In
Hmm.
less than 3 months, my body changed. I got picked on in high school, whereby people say I have grown man legs
Hmm.
because my calf muscle wasn't looking like normal kid calf muscle.
Right.
I have that huge yam underneath. Knowing you have that yam and you contract it, you can beat somebody with it. That's where I was looking.
But did you develop that yam, or was it kind of genetic? You kind of had that
I
already.
kind of like I can't say it's genetic or I can say developed because my body reacts very, very unique. I should say I call myself a Saiyan. I have a Saiyan body, meaning if I start working out for too long,
Mm,
everything contract and I feel like so congested. But the moment
mm.
I take a little break, it just shoo, and I'm like, what's
Okay.
wrong with my body? So when I
Okay.
start to look into it, I start to find out what the endomorph. I have what an endomorph body.
Right. So
If I keep myself moving for too long, I
mhm.
build muscle easily
Right.
over time.
Got it. So you're kind of like an endomesomorph. The only reason I'm asking that is because I do think certainly for depending on your body type, I think this the type of training that you do can certainly differ. So if you're already on the larger side, or like you
Mhm.
said, you're already sort of prone to building muscle, the quote unquote conditioning work you could probably get away with a lot longer. Whereas guys like myself, like I said, I'm 6'3". When I graduated college, I was 147 pounds.
Whoa,
So for me,
you were underweight.
very much so. Very much so. I was like I said, they used to call me Jimmy Walker. My brother's friends, they call me JJ from Good Times. I was that skinny back in the day. So
Peter, don't do it. Don't do that. I love that look on his face.
so so for me, I might, just to say I might have a bit more bias towards the weightlifting or the strength training because I'm working it from the other side. If you look at Bruce Lee, look at those early pitches. When he was 18, he was still in Hong Kong. Those pitches he had with Ip
Mhm.
Man, he was thin. He built his body up after he came to the US and started adopting, bodybuilding. He read bodybuilding magazines, muscle weeder publications and stuff. He read all that stuff and he built himself up from there. But I think for endo and mesomorphs, you can probably start out with doing the push-ups because you have bulk. A lot of those guys already have bulk to their body already,
Mhm.
which all they need to know how to then do is how to utilize it, how to use leverage to their advantage. So for those guys, they may not have to focus so much on packing on the pounds because either they can do that very easily, like I said, just by doing push-ups. I said Herschel Walker, I think he's just naturally, genetically just bigger than everybody else.
I get your point. I see what
Ronnie
you're saying.
Coleman was a big guy, relatively speaking, before he even went into the gym. So, the story of him going to the gym and meeting that guy, he went in. And the guy asked him, okay, well, what contest you competing for? And Bonnie didn't even know what he was talking about because he's like, oh, well, I'm just here trying to get a membership. The guy offered him a free membership if he gets and joins like a bodybuilding contest, and he barely lifted weights even at the time. So I think those guys, I think the
I
formula
get
for
I,
them
I get your point. I see
could
what you're
be
coming from.
different. Yeah,
The angle, because as a young kid, I had abnormal strength for no apparent reason, which I was
right,
scared of myself because imagine a 14-year-old kid was able to push a truck down the road to get a jump started by myself as a young kid. So I wasn't huge. I just have those abnormal strength 'cause I was always doing hard work and hard labor,
right,
and I
right,
got used to it. So it's kind of like
right,
I get the point now because I think it's genetic do play a part based on what kind of workout fits them best.
right. Yeah, no, for sure. And again, what you need. So again, I think for the guy already up here, you need to be conditioned sort of to come down a little bit to meet. But if I'm starting at the bottom, if I'm like Steve Rogers, right? If I'm the 98-pound
Oh
guy
my,
getting beat up all the time, no, I need some super soldier formula. I
oh,
need I need to sort of meet the
I
moment
was.
a little bit more. So yeah, you may
You,
need to get
you didn't
me.
have to say that word, Steve. You didn't. I almost choke on that one. I was like, really, come
Yeah,
on.
I was that kid.
See,
I was that Steve
here's
Rogers.
where I
Yeah,
have some issues here because I have a different mentality with most fighters. You can train and get all the bulk and everything like that, but at the end of the day, most good fighters. Let's put it up. Bruce Lee, for example, he was a small guy. Master V, a small guy. Master V was only 120 pounds. And that was his whole life. He couldn't gain weight if he tried. And this motherfucker he got kicked out of the buffet. Master Ray, my instructor, small guy again, 130. Top weight when he died was 145. He was kicked out of 3 Chinese buffets because he ate too much.
mhm.
I'm not even joking about that. I'm being dead serious, by the way. And you know anything about New York Chinese buffets? David, how hard is it kicked out in Chinese buffets in New York?
Not that easy.
My point exactly. So the smaller skeleton is better. Listen, I'll be straight up, guys. I always been a fat Greek bastard. Not coming out of you, David. I know it's coming, so shut your mouth.
I'm not saying no word. That's
I
BMU.
know you will. Shut up down there before I meet your ass. Um, so I was always a chubby guy, and I took that. But then I learned from my instructors I can use that as an advantage. Chubby guys are very good in judo. Oh, nothing's changed a little bit for me. As much as I wish I had the ripped body like Bruce Lee, or have you seen Paul? Have you seen the movie Ninja Assassin?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
You gotta watch it. You
Okay,
got to
No,
watch it. I'm
all right.
serious.
you
But do me
your
a
homework
favor.
for next week,
If you watch it,
young man.
don't
Listen to
eat.
me, young man. Your homework for next week.
Don't
You gotta be
eat.
done. Excuse me.
Yeah, he's saying don't eat if I'm
While
gonna
you watching
watch
that
it.
movie, do not.
Okay.
No. He needs to have eat. Actually, don't listen to David. Eat something as you're watching it. So
No. Okay.
your homework for next week, young man, is there was a ninja
No
assassin.
promises. I got a pretty busy week, but like I said, I'll see if it's on Netflix. I'll see if I can check it out. But
I'll look for you over now in 1 second. But anyway, his skull is the greatest sculpture. All these '90s karate guys, if you look back, the guy who played in Mortal Kombat, small sculpture. The guy who played in Three Ninjas, small sculpture. All of them has more for a reason.
right.
Speed. You cannot take speed away like that. Any day. Am I wrong or right, David? You jump in on this.
No, you're right. You're right about that.
I usually am.
You should find it on Netflix.
What is it?
So let's yeah, I'll definitely look it up. But let's because I don't know, Mandrell's running. We got about half hour left in
Actually,
the.
I got a text, and it doesn't look like he's gonna make it. He said.
Okay, so let's get into some of these questions since we're kind of talking about.
We're still
So we talked about the modern evolution again. And it's almost like a two-part question. So um, you have how have the martial arts been adapted into modern sports practices such as MMA, and what impact that had on the community? So for you guys who are making arguments that again speed's important and fighting bigger guys and whatnot, are you in favor then of weight classes.
Yes.
Okay,
They
so
shouldn't
then
be a weight class, unfortunately.
how does then that bolster your argument if you're saying that, okay, yeah, I know my master Ray, God rest his soul, 130 pounds, 140-pound guy beating bigger guys and whatnot, and we're not talking about anybody. We're talking about the best of the best, right? You're talking about a professional athlete here. You're talking about people who are at the elite levels, but you still support weight classes. But if these guys are the best, and if that speed or whatever that person has can be used to their advantage, then why would you support weight classes then?
So, in my personal opinion, if we're talking about professional fighting now, weight classes are need to be because of the belt ranking. Because you were working for uh heavyweight is X, Y, and Z, middleweight, and so on. You're working to be in that weight to fight in that class. Now, on the street, weight class means shit. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
David
But
Jordan.
we're talking about the modern, again. The question is dealing with the modern evolution. So we're talking
But the
about,
question I got for you now: are we talking
yeah.
about in the ring or on the street?
Well, certainly in the ring, you can't control the street. So we're talking about in the ring. But keep in mind, when MMA got started, there were no weight limits, right?
So that is
I
that is
mean,
true. There was no weight limit at the time.
right. So do you prefer with the way they have it now, or would you rather it went back to the old days where there were no weight limits then?
Back in the old days, I think it's better.
Back in the old days, I would agree, but looking at one championship, I think the weight class make it much entertaining because I lost my faith in UFC because even though they had the weight class, some of these martial artists are not really martial artists. It is
Corrupted.
pre-martial artists compared to the one I see in one championship. These one championship fight are being fought by real deal martial artists, and they got ego and pride on the line. The one thing you win the championship and the belt is their ego, their pride to put on the line as well. And I see some of the craziest fight that you were like, oh my, oh no, like how you stand for this? Those kind of fight, it make your blood boil, it make you look like you were there yourself doing it. Compared to UFC, UFC have got too watered down because one, the guy who run it, he's not a martial artist.
Mm,
He don't fully understand the fundamental behind it. He's all about making the money. And the guy who won one championship right now, his promotion by to oversee UFC in the long run because all real martial arts are going over there compared to over here. Yeah, I found that thing on Amazon too. I was looking it up too. So trust what I'm saying. It's you gotta look at other promotions that really push the need for real martial artists to come out and compete compared to someone who trying to get into this thing just for the sake of making the money because when you call it MMA, mixed martial art, you gotta have a fundamental teaching background or foundation. Me, going with you, Mandrell, we have foundation that we build our skills from, and we venture on to add editor if you feel like it. Some stick with one style, other add two or three extra style to it. But when you
right.
look at martial art is a discipline. And I watch a lot of UFC fights. I don't see much discipline in these fights nowadays.
Mm,
So it kind
right.
of like I can almost overanalyze, and I get tired of doing that. I see too many flaws. Like you could have done this, or you could have done that. Or Boone will tell you if you watch UFC, he watch a fight. You being a martial artist, you gotta look at every mistakes or every opportunity you could have taken, but you did not take it because of X, Y. You can almost tell. You look at the footing. Nah, they got bad footing. Oh, he's not part of himself. Oh, you could like you get
People hate watching fights with me because I call the fucking moves out. Like they're fucking sloppy as shit.
Right.
bingo. And I do the same thing too. I'm not gonna lie. I have a bad habit. When I watch these fight and I see some of the things that you have never done, and I see why they, I think you could never. If you'd have done, I like if you could. And I'm seeing myself saying that. I say I'm sick. I'm tired of doing that because these guys are not martial artists. Martial artists know what to do and not to- and sometimes even if they win the fight, they didn't like the fact they didn't do well. Like
So
Machida,
again, so hang on. So how are you defining a martial artist versus, say, the MMA guys?
discipline and their
And
structure.
discipline in what way? What do you mean? Just define that.
Anyone who practice karate, you will know that person practice karate. The same person who practice kung fu or Thai boxing. They're a particular stance,
Okay.
particular structure, the particular aura. You can almost tell they put in is real a student of the art, or you can tell someone just got into it because certain footing you can you can take advantage of, and a lot of people don't even see it. It's just
Okay,
like
so I'm a,
it's
all
just
right.
like boxing.
y-
If you had someone who was not a real professional boxing going away and say, "Oh, I can box you," and you can tell right from the back, "Nah, they put had never boxed in their life." What?
Okay, I would almost put these in different categories now. So I'm gonna go off the
Before you do that, let me say something. One
yeah.
thing, really, Paul. Back in the day, it was.
Hey, I'm the
I'm
host.
sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm listening to you. Go ahead.
I hate both of you
I
fuckers.
don't
Go
show my
ahead.
face because I had food here, so it'd be kind of rude for me eating like Man Joe would have done. So I try not to choke.
He's always
Oh
fucking
man.
eating when he's on on
Oh
camera.
man. Oh man, Joe don't clear, man. Man, Joe
He
be
doesn't give a
smack.
shit.
Man, be smacking. Yeah, man. So
And I had to have respect for you guys. I'm hungry. I haven't eaten almost in the past 8 hours or so.
a discipline, right?
So, so
Yeah.
two things I was gonna say was one. Back in the day, the war. David, do you remember the War Martial Arts tournament? Any chance?
Trying
I
to
think
remember
that's what.
when.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember, but those convention to get the video is hard to get.
Yeah, there's no videos on there because how hard it is. But the War Martial Tournament was the foundation of the UFC. Before UFC was UFC, it was the War Martial Arts Tournament.
Mm.
They require you to, before you enter the tournament, to have a black belt or some type of martial art degree.
Hmm.
Your instructor had to prove that in a letter or format. One.
Hmm.
Second, it was one of the UFC shows, Ultimate Fighter. The one guy was fighting another guy, and he threw a fit. Started hitting, punching the door. I can get my way. That's what David means by discipline. They have no discipline. How many times do you see guys getting arrested for beating the shit out of his girlfriend or beating the fuck out of his poor guy for just bumping
Too
into
many.
him or some shit like that? The stupid Irish motherfucker, whatever his name is, he's getting his fight with Machine Kelly, with this guy, that guy. There's no discipline in that. I'm disgusted for him calling himself a martial artist. And I
Okay,
bet
so
you a
let's.
real martial will kick his ass in a heartbeat.
All right, now let's see. That now, see, I'm going to push back now because when we
Go for
talked
it.
about this before the show started, David, let's get you in here.
Hmm.
I have an issue
Hmm.
between fighting
Hmm.
and martial arts. They're not, to me, they're not the same thing. And a lot of martial artists, bottom line, regardless of their discipline and their skill, do not know how to fight.
And
And I would personally, I would take the MMA guy
hmm.
more times than not
Hmm.
versus a martial artist, because the one thing that the MMA guy is doing that the martial artist may or may not be doing is they're either doing heavy sparring or actually combat situations.
And
And
there's different.
so,
Let me ask you a question, Paul, so I
yeah,
understand correct. You saying the MMA guy has upper hand versus a martial artist?
if you're talking about the martial artist as defined by someone who has discipline, who studies katas, but does not have practical fighting experience in situations that go off of that. Look, you can be in Wing Chun and you can do the trapping drills and all those drills and dummy drills and all that kind of stuff, energy back and forth and do all that stuff and look pretty cool. In the street, you don't know what situation you're going to have out there. I think an MMA fighter, because that opponent that you're fighting isn't necessarily quote unquote disciplined. You don't know where that person is coming from, a wrestling background, a boxing background, a judo background, an MMA whatever the background is. You just got to deal with the person in front of you. I personally believe that those guys have an advantage. I would even put a boxer in a lot of instances. If you want to talk about, um, certainly in a setting, boxers fight. I don't see a lot of martial artists fighting, but the only way you know how to fight is by fighting.
I would say this. Let me deal with that question. I had an issue with modern martial art, not traditional martial art, because the reason why in traditional martial art you did we call semi full contact or full contact sparring, but meaning you put what you learn into tests and
Hmm.
see how you go about it. That's mostly done a lot in Japan. Same thing in China. Thailand is no different. But when they bring martial art to this country, it almost got watered down. That was one of the number one issues. So some real martial artists who want to learn better, they don't learn within the U.S. They go outside the country where it originates from and learn from those over there. And I hate to say this, karate, let me to tell you this. They do sparring all right, but the sparring range from semi full contact to straight full contact. You talking
Hmm.
about after a good hour or two of sparring, you take off the gi, you will see bruises all over a person's body. It is no joke. There was a well-known karate actor. He did a movie called The Street Fight. I forgot the name. I think you know who I'm talking about, Gomen. And there have been a debate about this for years about where martial arts had to learn how to adapt to fight when they're outside on the street. And this actor did a movie based on that, and that put a lot of martial art in the on the light. Say, you know what, we need to work on what we are learning and put in actuality. The Japanese military, the South Korean military, the Chinese military, everybody must know martial art. But when it comes to get into a real fight in a combat environment, they put you to the test. And believe me, it's not you're doing kata. You gotta know exactly what you're doing.
Right.
We'll talk. So I get what you're coming with. You have a right, legitimate reason to have an issue about that because martial art in the U.S. don't push the level. They don't push the limit. They don't have people actually do a real semi to full contact.
Right.
Whereby, how would I say? No disrespect to parents, but some parents are afraid to see their kid get their ass whooped.
Sure.
You think I'm lying? Greco wrestling. How often you see these parents snap when they find their son get slammed the worst way possible?
Yeah. Especially
Get
the
my
younger
point.
ones, like the 8-year-olds or whatnot. Because there was this. I don't know if you saw this one. I think YouTube video. This black kid power bombed this white kid, and the kid started crying. And the parents pulled him. I think the black kid got suspended or something like that, it disqualified or something, but because they said he was too harsh or whatever. But I mean, he power bombed this kid, legal move, but it was too brutal. So I think they disqualified the black kid or
You
whatever.
get the
But
point now.
yeah, yeah,
That's the issue. It's too watered down here. When I did martial art back in my country, we did semi contact control almost completely full contact. I did full contact. I felt the blow or the kick will feel like,
mm.
and my body recognized it. I get conditioned to it though, mind you.
But let me ask you one again, more caveat here. All right, so I get you're doing the sparring, but do you think that in an extent there's still an advantage that is enjoyed by the traditional martial artists over the MMA guy because
Hmm.
generally you know what's coming
You
because
know
you're
why?
studying the same form. Hang on, before you shake it, you go through, you study it, kind of, you know the forms. You're in the discipline. There's a way you throw. There's a way you strike. There's a way you kick. There's a way you block. So the thing is, you don't know when a guy's going to be, throwing. But in MMA, like I said, the guy might be a shooter. He could be a wrestler. He could be a striker. He could be whatever. You don't necessarily know what the guy is going to use coming at you because of that undiscipline. But in a fight, you're more than likely going to deal with undiscipline versus discipline. But if I know the style that's being employed and all the potential blocks and holes and get outs and all of that, aren't you still at somewhat of an advantage in that you can kind of understand what's coming at you versus somebody who doesn't?
I'll let Gumi answer because I can see he's eager to answer that question. Let him answer
Yes,
yours
yes. He's the
first.
student in the class. Me, pick me, pick
Hey,
me.
hey! You say you're the host, so I raise my hand politely, like a teacher.
You may answer, Mr. Laritzis.
Okay. So I want to touch one thing before we get into the whole big question because I got a lot to say right now. A MMA guy has rules he needs to abide. That is built into his head. No elbow strikes, down elbow strikes, only side. No kick to the groin, no eye gouging. A martial artist, there's no fucking rules. You're gonna rip this fucking balls right off. A groin strike, rip the groin, boom. Go for the eyes. Let's go for the throat next. Let's go for break the ribs. Let's go for the rotator cuff. It doesn't matter. Whatever you need to do, you're gonna do. That's the advantage of a martial artist. Number one, versus a MMA guy. Now, when it comes down to be in actual fighting, yeah, they have fight. If you think here for 1 minute, a karate, kung fu, judo, any of these guys don't spar for hours. I used to spar 8 hours a session. Name one UFC does it all year round, 8 hours like that.
I didn't say spar. No, not only spar. I said fight.
I know you did. I didn't say that. I asked you. I mean, tell me how many UFC MMA fighters spar all year round with not
No, it's
prepping for a
typically
fight.
up when a fight. Yeah, get in preparation for a fight, and but best they may do 2 or 3 fights a year.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So a martial arts does it because he enjoys the art. He does it because he likes it. So he might be sparring more times than the other person. Now fighting. Okay, let's use that. Let's use that. Okay, a MMA guy has maybe what 3 fights a year tops, right? Like you said.
Yeah, but he's still training throughout the year.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
Hmm.
So he's training to fight. There's 3 major fights. So he fights 3 times a year. I may get in 1 fight a year. Depends on the tournament. If I get into a tournament, now I might fight 4, 5, 6 times a year. When peak season for me, back in the day, I used to fight 6, 7 times a year. But that's not only 1 fight a day. That could be up to 5 fights in one night, one day.
Yeah, true.
So who has an advantage now?
You got a point. Let me add this one. I think
Go
we
for it.
want
Floor is
to
yours.
understand it very, very quick to clear. This have been going on for more than multiple centuries. Every martial arts style always tell their student one thing, or don't use it for fighting, right? But in all centuries, there have been underground fight. Where you have martial art want to test their skill and their mettle and see they're the best of the best. That is worse than drugs, to be honest with you. I'm not gonna lie. I thought my center was lying about it. Then I found myself looking for underground fight where I can go and test my mettle. And you're not supposed to, mind you. This has been going on for centuries. It has been known you have underground fighting ring where with not mixed martial artists are going to the place to test themselves and see how far they have reached.
Right.
And
I
those
get. I
who
get you.
and I'm be honest, those who have been going to those type of arena to battle test themselves, those the ones you don't want to fight on the street
I
because
understand, and that's my point. That's my general point.
mm,
I said most. The guys you're talking about are fighters. They're fighters. The guy who enters the tournaments every year, not everybody in a martial arts school is going into a tournament.
you're right, you're right.
So fighting is more than is it's a mindset. It's going into a situation understanding that I can either damage someone or be damaged
You're right.
and be willing to pull out the stops. A lot of folks don't like to get hit.
Right. That's true.
So that's what I'm saying. So there's a fighting spirit. I'm saying there's a fighting spirit throughout all of these things. I think the combat sports, I think that's kind of front and center. That doesn't mean that a martial artist is bad enough to go up and say, look, I'll take on anybody. That's not going to be the bulk of your guys, even in the schools that you guys practice in. Most of those guys that you practice with, they're not trying to be about it. They might be in the school. They like the atmosphere. They like the discipline. They like all the stuff. And like I said, a lot of martial arts, actually, like you said earlier, a lot of martial artists teach not to use it in the street. But you know that there's those dogs. You know there's them dogs that be like, all right, I sold you guys to be out, but the teacher is not speaking to that person. He's speaking through them. He's telling everybody, I don't want you guys using it in the street, but you know who he's talking about.
Yeah.
It's the one or two dudes that will go and bring actually dishonor to the school because they're hot headed and they just want that life. But you can't just single them out because it looks bad and the person may leave.
You're
You don't
right.
want to
You're right.
call out anybody
You're right.
directly, at least not publicly. So you'll have a general message, but you know who you're talking about.
You're
We
right.
know
You're
that.
right. You're right about that.
So I'm
And
saying, so those guys, the underground guys, that's a different breed. Those guys could be almost in any combat sport, any arena, because they're fighters. I do believe there's such a thing called a fighting spirit.
mm,
Some people, again, you got that pit bull in you that has to be tamed. For most people, you have to bring that out of them if they have it at all, or give them some semblance of it. Some guys, they need that restraint of rules and regulations and whatnot. Otherwise, they be in prison. Prison, I mean, the sports, and it happens all the time in boxing. Tons of boxers, even the guy just fought, Devontae Tank Davis, just fought last week. I have no doubt he would have been in prison if it wasn't for boxing. Mike Tyson would have definitely been. He was in prison
you're right.
when Customato found him.
You're right.
So we already
Yeah,
know
I
that.
give it. You're right.
So again, like I said, there's certain dudes who are just like, look, they need boxing to save, or combat sports to save their lives.
I'm not
Otherwise, they're willing to give it up. And fortunately, for all of us, there's not that many guys around. Because if there were, there would be chaos all over the world.
You're right.
But that's the guy that's like, look, whoa, hey,
Those
you know,
guys are not.
you might even qualify for that, David, because as many stories as you talked about with just the drama that you've had to deal with or whatever, you one of those dudes. Guy, I'm in your school saying, look, I don't want you guys doing nothing. I'm talking to you, but I'm
I'll
not
be
talking
honest.
to
I'll
you,
be
but I'm
honest.
talking to you.
I almost broke a code in high school. I kicked a guy across the classroom.
Mm,
I overlord. When I say I kicked the guy through across the classroom, I was one of those dudes that I didn't have a dog. I don't know what to call it with an enemy, but we're beyond a beast. And I was trying
yeah.
my
You were,
best.
yeah,
I was trying my best to keep him on the lead.
yeah,
So I'm not gonna lie. I was one of those people who really want to test my
yeah,
mental to see how far I can really go because
yeah.
I was constantly training. I was pushing my the point that I was that one student in high school who hang out by himself while everybody at lunch sharing no time and holler at the girl. I'm in an empty classroom doing push up with desks going
Hmm.
far trying to see how I could push my body. That was me. I was that maniac.
Hmm.
And no one want to get in a fight with because they saw what I did to a few people in the past in our class. So kind of like I stay away from anybody and everybody. I'll find a
Thank God,
hidden space and just
thank God you were
talk.
smart.
See,
Thank
see,
God you were
certain
smart. If you
see
weren't
my
smart, or if you didn't have that Nigerian look education or whatever, you would have been, yeah, it would have been a different story for you, man.
so to me it was the opposite actually. My instructor, Master Ray, this is his rule was, you never throw a first punch. Once the first punch connects to your jaw or whatever, stomach, whatever, it's all free game. Rip his
Yeah.
goddamn fucking head off. And it's like
I
simple.
hate that rule. I abuse it too much.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I came up to the guy. He was mouthing off, and I knew he had, and I was right. He had no balls. I went up to him and go ahead, bitch. Throw the first punch. Come on, you little fucking bitch. And I said some other things I don't want to say on camera either. Like the C word a couple times.
Hmm.
And I called him a couple names and like, come on, motherfucker. I went, let's go. Slap me if you have the balls.
I'm not
Never
gonna lie.
slapped me.
I abused that rule throughout my teen and my 20. I want them to get the fourth punch. I let them hit me first so I could have an excuse to go demon mode on them. I'm not gonna lie. I abused
Berserker,
that rule.
in other words.
They're berserker and they're demon mode. Demon mode. Everybody who saw me, my eye blacked out.
Yeah.
That's when I was not myself, and I didn't realize I had it bad. Because this is the true this is a true confession. This was happening to me and my father. My father used to do that. He hit me a lot. And one moment he did it to the point whereby I couldn't take it no more. My brother was there, my cousin, I blacked out. They both said all my eyes went completely black. I left my father about almost 4 feet up in the air with one hand.
Hmm.
Took them both of them. They yanked me off him. My
Hmm.
father was above the air. I had the feet dangling about 2, 3 feet in the air with one hand. That to show I was one of those kind that all I do is let you hit me a couple of times to get me to that zone, and I'm gone. So
See,
I would
before you move
admit,
forward, before you move too far, I want to mention one thing about the underground fighting we were talking about. That is a real fucking thing. Those
Oh, sure.
those champions they call them, I guess, of underground. You know who they are because they're always walking in with the bling bling, the best shirt, best hat. I'm like,
hmm
who the fuck is that guy? I want to know him. He goes, no, you don't. I'm like, why? He won every fight in the last month. I'm like, oh, I still want to meet him. He goes, "You're crazy." Like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm crazy. I want to know how he made all that money. I want to make some. I was trying to get into that shit. I'm not gonna lie to you because he can
Yeah.
make 10K very easy, lose or win. Winner makes like 20K. I'm like, fuck yeah.
and that's popular in Japan and China.
New
Yeah.
York here
Mostly in
was
the eight,
humongous in New York,
most,
bro.
but mostly in the Asian country because those they are mostly regulated by the mafias. New York, we are to a degree, but those over there
Now,
outside
not
the
the
U.S.,
not the triads or the
uh, man, they breed fighters. That's all they do.
right,
They breed fighters. The kind of fighter they breed are more likely to end up being their bodyguard. So I'm telling you, it's not a joke.
right.
You you even have anime just showing how some of these people come about and why they became like a living weapons.
I hear you. I hear you. We're coming up on really towards the end of the show, so I'm gonna try to get this one question in. It's probably not fair to introduce it, but I'm just saying if we just do a summary on it. So we've all heard, and we kind of touched on it before. We didn't really delve in deep on it. This idea of chi or ki, however you want to
I was
define
waiting
it,
for this question. My favorite shit.
because there's a debate I've been hearing. Some people believe that it does not exist. If we say that boxing is a martial art, you never hear ki or chi in boxing. You just don't.
You're the dumb nuts.
So so what is your guys' take on it? Is this an actual energy or is it something else? Are you trying to do you look at chi as a spiritual energy or a kinetic energy coming like from a physical, from the muscle synapses or whatever? What do you think that it really is? Is there validity to it, and why don't we hear about it in these other more? But you don't hear about chi, and certainly not in MMA. I haven't heard about it in or any of these. You talk about Krav Maga, you talk about Sistema, you talk about the MMA, wrestling, all these other combative forms. Nobody ever talks about these items, but they're considered martial arts. So
I'll
where do you
I'll give you
guys fall on
I'll give you
this?
I'll give you a quick
And
answer on
yeah,
that one.
and this will be the last question of the night. If we need to take this into a third show, part three, we're going to start with this if need be. But see how
I'll
you guys can sort
Actually,
of
I'll give it
succinctly
a quick
summarize this.
answer, and I will
David,
go
hang on
into
one
research
second
and
before you
find
go too
out. But
far.
it's like this: you're walking away from the physical aspect into the supernatural aspect. When people talk about chi is in China. I think ki is in Japan,
Hmm. But is it the
and
same thing or are they different?
they're almost the same philosophy, but a different approach.
Hmm.
Now, this is like I said, you're walking away from the physical into the supernatural. You're doing things that doesn't make no sense, but it does happen. But the reason why it's not spoke about, it's not something to put out there in the open.
Hmm.
These are next level, like going with when you get to fourth damn black belt, you're entering something that I hate to say, if you are a Christian, you will find yourself in a crossroad whereby your faith will be trying to pull you to no, 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 no. That's how far you can go. You can't go for you go into this, you enter uncharted territory. Same thing in martial art in China. You talk about kung fu. It's not something to expound on so much because you're dealing with something that is not. How would I put it? I'm trying to find the exact word to say. It's not made common in the public because they have grown numb to it. We're in an era whereby the supernatural don't mean much to anybody compared to the era of the time when the supernatural was a big deal. You know what I'm saying? That's a century ago.
Hmm.
Now you have people who use the cheese and key into their fighting form, and they do things that totally unheard of.
Hmm.
That will have people bite their tongue, have people choke, have people look like, okay, time for me to go. Those kind of thing. That's why when it comes to dealing with chi and ki, that's why I say ki is Japan, chi is China. They're about the same thing but different approach.
Okay, Peter.
Well,
So David's writing a lot of it. I'm gonna use a lot of anime as examples, so keep that in mind. So martial arts, traditional martial arts, karate, kung fu, Greco, all those are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. They were practicing those before boxing was even a thing. So let's keep that in mind. So when it comes to it, it's a energy field coming from inside of you. To control that is very difficult. In my style, you don't learn that to at least fifth degree black belt. But we also have a techniques called unforbidden jiu-jitsus. The unforbidden jiu-jitsu are unforbidden for a reason. They're dangerous. They are deadly. To the point they're too dangerous for any man to know about. Even Master Ray knew of them. He knew the theory. Could he execute them? Possibility. He never liked talking about them. It always creeped him out. To
Hmm.
the point like his hair, literally, I could see his hair sticking up. That's how he got scared. And this man was scared of nothing except his maker. That's it. So, can you maybe, float yourself? Yeah, I believe that. Could you make an energy ball? Yeah, but you can't see it. Can you strike somebody hard? Yeah, I seen him do some crazy shit. Like lifting something like, how the fuck are you lifting that? That's not humane possible. He goes, one day you're gonna learn, young man. He goes to me. I go, fuck that. I want to learn now. I want to be that. I guess I can go over there and kick some guy's ass and make some money out of it. That's my fucking theory. Always was. And he's always just shook his head like, you're never gonna fucking learn, kid. But my point is trying to get to all these cartoons, for example, all these animes. There's some truth behind them. Okay, not Naruto, like he does hand signs. And next thing you know, he has like five different clones. That's far fetched. But the hand signs is true too, because there's healing properties behind that. You do the
Hmm.
hand sign correctly, you can heal a cut, or heal a broken wound, or transfer some chakra to somebody else to save their lives. That is what the hand signs are originally meant for, not to
Hmm.
fight. The hand signs were never for fighting; they were actually for healing. Now the fighting part is inside of you. Is how can you control those gates? There are five gates. We always say, if you are able to open all five gates, most likely when you close those all five gates, you're going to end up in a hospital because your body cannot handle that much power at once.
Hmm.
Simple. Yeah, people say, "Oh, you guys are crazy, or dorks, geeks, whatever." Call me whatever you want. But when you see in your own front eyes at least two gates open, and you see people punch things, and move things, it's not possible. You question your mortality. You question a lot of things. You question you're on the right side. I'm not talking about your religion beliefs. Like, am I supposed to be on that side or this side? The fence. Who do I team up with? Because he guy just punched a boulder, moved it 10 feet, but he can't do that. You question things. It's hard to understand this sometimes. Even between me and David at this point are in our martial art career in our lives. I still scratch my head trying to understand this. Like, yeah, I still don't understand this, and I think David is the same boat with me, right, David?
yep.
Right.
It's
But
very
can
hard.
you guys appreciate though some of the skepticism when it comes to its use? We again, you can go see these YouTube videos and you basically got a guy taking out a whole group of guys without landing a punch. He just kind of throws his hands and the guy goes flying or whatever. And a lot of that stuff just comes off as just being very
Hollywood.
fake. And I'm sure you guys would agree. There's a lot of fake content out
Hmm.
there that may or may not be representing it
Hmm.
well. But for the skeptic, just as you have religious skeptics, certainly I'm sure you have sense to this. And again, I'm
Hmm.
no martial artist. Look up like Ramsey Dewey, for example. He trains in China. He's been there for 12 years. He doesn't believe there's a thing called chi. So there's several guys who put videos out there on whether or not it's valid or not. Again, I don't know because I haven't been in this area. So again, and it would be interesting if we had another martial artist who may have another opinion on that. I don't know if Mandrell believes in chi or key force, or at least to the understanding. But again, the fact that it's not used, if it's something that could empower someone beyond the physical realm and just understanding how human beings operate, there's always somebody who wants to try to monopolize or duplicate their power for their own selfish. Imagine if the Chinese military said, "Look, we want to um, leverage this chi force for all of our military." If anybody had a motivation to want to do that, it would be the Chinese. Forget it's dangerous and all that. Well, look, we want to be the strongest, baddest army in the world, and this she's going to help us win. If push comes to shove, if we go to war with somebody or whatever, I'd rather have the chi working with us than not. So,
I would say
people,
you could. I would say you have an
human beings are
excellent
still
point.
human beings. So I'm saying people may still try to abuse it to a certain extent for their own aims. And why haven't we seen more of it? Just given the nature of human beings.
I would say that what you say is totally 100% correct. Even I was thinking the same thing, but I realized to acquire something, there's a pathway to that will prevent people wanting to put it out in the open to begin with. Just like he said, the practitioners who have ventured into that realm were forced to take a particular oath, not to be willing to put it out there like that. They're the reason why those things are not made. Because if you look at the Chinese history, let's be honest though, they was looking down on their own martial art at one point, like it's not needed, because they were transitioning from their fighting art form into weaponry.
Hmm.
So the art of those things was almost faded away because they didn't have faith. Remember, these things require a certain level of faith to get into that type of thing. Same thing with Japan. Japan was no different. Japan was walking from their art of style of fighting into weaponry. When they got into the modern age, the modern time, those things of the supernatural start to fade away. Same thing in Africa. There's some country that was partaking in the supernatural. Either we like it or we don't. But when it got into the modern time, people become numb to it. So when you become numb to it, those type of things are fading into what they call fading into the shadow. Or certain people practice it. Or some
Mm.
people partake in it. But not to the level of adding to a fighting style. That's a very, very, very few. And believe me, you're not gonna find no one in the US practicing that. I doubt
That's
that.
I yeah. I said
So I am going to throw a monkey wrench to this conversation really fast. People who don't understand the chakra or chi or this unnatural stuff call they always call black magic, this devil stuff, and part of it is true. I'm not denying that. But back in
Hmm.
the day, during the witch hunts, anybody who is able to do something not natural was called a Wiccan, a witch, or a warlock.
right.
So people have never left those mentalities. Like, yo, that's not natural. You're not supposed to be flying or hovering in the house like that.
In China, I think that the word called ayakashi, people that who deal with the supernatural, like the talisman, something like that. I might be wrong, but that's the name they call certain people who dabble and dabble in those type of art. Don't get me wrong. In the history book, there were people who were into those things. It's documented in the history book. It's just that in present time, people are not gonna believe that because we are too modernized with the physical realm, forgetting that we're living in the physical with the supernatural right next door to it.
Right.
Just that you don't know how to tap into it.
Right. I'm just thinking up to this time, you haven't had. I mean, we've had tyrants. We've had. I mean, go back to like Captain America, First Avenger, right? Red Skull he was basically what made him different from Hitler was that he actually believed in these mystic arts and things. He
Mm-hmm.
was looking for the secrets in
Ace.
the earth that, and he wanted to, again, he wanted to monopolize it. So I'm just
Facts.
saying, all these guys that we've had over the decades and millennia, who are again malevolent dictators who lust for power, um how they have not been able to leverage, again, we can look at the comics or whatever, but I'm serious. Guys who have not looked to leverage, it's like, if there is this power that can be harnessed in human beings,
Don't.
one, I must have it. I must have it, number one. And not only must have it, but then anybody under my realm, my soldiers, my, how can I be the baddest? I mean, you know, Emperor Palpatine, whatever it is. I mean, but we've had bad actors. I'm just saying
I'm glad you said that. Shout out to Indiana Jones series. Indiana Jones put a reason
that,
why
yeah,
don't
they
you.
were, yeah, that was like, look, we can't, but those dudes, they were after it. Hitler wanted the Ark of the Covenant. He wanted that power, because he believed if whoever
So, Paul,
owns the Ark runs the world.
here's the thing: it's easier to train somebody to shoot a firearm, pull a trigger, than teach somebody how to use an energy beam out of his hand. It takes years and years of discipline and practice.
Understood. Okay, but still, that's what your special ops is for. That's for you, right? Again,
Yeah,
that's like
yeah,
that's what
yeah,
your red,
Paul, you
the
you're
know,
the,
not
the
lying.
empire, the red guard, right? I mean, the Emperor Palpatine had that red guard, right? Those are the
yes,
special ops. Those are the dudes that are like, on another level. Why isn't someone, and me? And I'm saying, I'm not saying we should want this to happen. I think maybe from what you guys are saying, we should be fortunate that this has not happened yet. But there's nothing. One thing that humanity history has shown us that there's few things beyond humanity's comprehension. That we'll go to the lowest of the low if it'll empower us. Just as humanity is human. This is a gray area topic now. Evil is evil, and people will try to use whether it be black magic or even the good things. Use the Bible. Use whatever for any malevolent intent. And if you're going to be saying that there's people with these special abilities, assuming if you believe that you won't tap it even by force, they say, look, you go to a guy, I know this stuff. If you don't give me what I want, it's your family. We've seen this in the world where people at gunpoint or their family's peril, that if you don't share with us what we need to know, then we taking all you guys out. That's how low humanity has gotten over the eons. That this is not something that I would think out of the realm of possibility. But again, that's if you believe it. Now, again, I'm probably on more the skeptic side of it. I'm not discounting, nor I'm sort of agnostic, if you will, as it comes to it. But if in fact you have people out there who genuinely have these abilities, then there's always the evil that can follow that wants to harness it for lust and
absolutely,
for
that's 100%
stuff.
right. That's
And
accurate.
and that's all I really want to say on that. You guys can, I said at this point, maybe a good idea because I'm just looking at the time. We can wrap up with final thoughts, I guess, on this topic,
Hmm.
and that certainly I think we're going to have another martial arts and a part three at some point where we can go either deeper into this or some of the other questions I didn't get a chance to answer tonight. But again, grooming. Thank you for the opportunity to host your show tonight. Hopefully, I've been a good host, and that
It's interesting comment. But my final thought is
Well,
this: this
David,
is
hang
a
on one second. I
topic.
want to say to Paul. Paul, remember a couple weeks ago I said I couldn't do the show. I wanted you to take the range.
mhm.
This is why I trust you. You have
Okay,
volume. You're always welcome to host. You're always welcome to do a show on the channel.
appreciate it.
You don't need my permission. You just need to tell me when and time, and you got it.
Okay, appreciate it.
Always remember that. So to me, and to the channel, you're not a friend. You're family and a brother to me.
Appreciate it.
All right, David, start talking.
My, my final thought is this: this is a great topic. We haven't had a chance to really sit down and speak on these levels and trying to dissect it, which is much needed because when we talk about martial art and health and fitness, it always end up going hand in hand. It start to give a new level of insight what to look at and what to study on and see what we can take out because I miss conversation like this in a long time when we start to diverge into styles, art, training, regimen, what what it is, what it's not, because it give you a different angle, a different look to respect what we've been practiced over the many years. I would say that for part three, I hope you get more people who can join in the conversation beside me, Peter, and Manuel because
Yeah,
it,
even someone like again Trey, because I know he's had military, police. I think I don't know if he's like as hardcore into martial arts as you guys do, but certainly he's had some training in
military were trained in that. They were trained by martial artists who had perfected the style over the
mhm,
period of time. Because remember I said there are people who get into the fighting and they know how to actually utilize certain move and they had to train the routine to the military people because this is why I think people sleep on martial art. Martial art is not all about kata alone. It's all about reacting at the time needed in different situations. We were taught how to use anything and everything as a weapon. Even a magazine can become a weapon depending on how you use it. And we were taught that many times. Your shirt, your key, a anything.
mhm,
Peter will tell you this. This is something when we are training how to. It's like survival instinct. If you look at history in China and Japan, a lot of people take these art, take it to another level unheard of. And yes, they have been battle tested. It have been proven. They have fought war in this. That's why you cannot sleep on martial art because any type of martial art, if you perfect it properly, it becomes very, very, very deadly. People don't realize how bad it is. That's why those who like me, I like a lie, I was a hungry individual. When I got older, I got to realize like, no, I can't think that. I gotta find out a way to suppress my rage, to protect my beast in myself because it's not healthy to have that 24/7.
right,
And I got that from because of my upbringing. Some people are genetically not they don't they can't live without it. That's all they know. So I'll tell you from experience, it's not healthy. But I will say this though, it's good to have that type of mentality. So in case of you gotta protect your family, you know how to tap into it.
right.
That I will tell you.
Gotcha. All right, grooming, close this up.
Before I close this out, 3 weeks from now, let's come back to this.
Okay.
Okay, because the next so the update schedule before I open my thoughts are tomorrow. I believe we're talking about toys. If I'm not mistaken, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
If they say the same. On Wednesday, we're talking about Are You Ready for AI? The following next at it is David's favorite subject because he's going to be the main character of the show. We are talking about iOS 18, the new era. I'm still trying to figure out the week after that topic for excuse me, Thursday, not Wednesdays. Thursday. I keep forgetting about that. But 2 Saturdays from now, on the 6th, we are talking about Friends Prince Bel Air versus Family Matters. That's gonna be a fun one. I know you guys are excited for that one, right, Paul?
I'm kind of in the middle.
Huh.
But
Let me either.
I'll give you what I got. I wouldn't say I'm an expert on either show,
I mean, I'm just
but
gonna have fun with it.
yeah,
So my final thoughts are this whole chakra thing, martial arts, fighter versus boxer. This is trading very dangerous territories a little bit. The reason is, if you train the wrong person, and we see it all the time with weapons, a wrong person gets a gun, it goes crazy. You don't want that to happen in martial arts because he starts maybe he starts creating a cult, and he's in charge of the cult. All of a sudden, you got now all these cult crazy motherfuckers coming at you, and they're trained like a militia. Yeah, you can say that we have firearms, or whatever. Okay, but let's say we don't have firearms for a minute. How are you going to defend yourself against something who is proven over history is works. And I think that's the reason why chakra has not really been explored more, because how much training is put into it. It's cheaper to train a special force ops versus training a special ops with chakra or whatever. I know this is a little far fresh we're talking about tonight, but it's a real subject we need to break down and discuss. It's not something to be done one night. But I am definitely in 3 weeks have Paul run that show again. We definitely need a couple more people. So if you guys know anybody else, please let me know. I'll reach out to them. I don't know. I have invited everybody I can, but a lot of people are camera shy, unfortunately. So let's see who else we can get on this. But except that, guys. As always. Actually, Paul, you close us out. Fuck that shit.
Okay. Well, shout out to the 7B Network, to the bold and beautiful, the beneficent, benevolent Ball Brotherhood of the BMU Network, who's also partnering with Grooming Reviews 101 on his website as well. Make sure you like, subscribe to the network and to the channel, and support his efforts in the space. But again, I am Mr. Bennett, hosting tonight on the Grooming and Reviews YouTube channel, and certainly it's been my pleasure to do so. So for everyone else, we'll see you tomorrow night on the Gray Area as we talk about toys. Looking forward to another insightful conversation. We dealt with some heavy subjects over the last couple of weeks, had both of these guys crying. Didn't mean to do that. But certainly toys will hopefully be a more uplifting and fun topic. So I'll be looking forward to that. But for everyone else, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Be safe. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
Stay fresh and stay safe, guys.
Hey, you said I close out.
I have to finish my. You guys say fresh part. You know I gotta say.
No, I don't. I don't have to say that. That's your line.
That's why I have to say it. It's my line.
So again, so you closed out. So you closed out, sir. Have a great night, everybody.
See you guys.